You have other side gigs, Qin Yuchu hinted. Fu Hang's eyes widened as he scanned their surroundings. All right, the original second-floor decor had been quite atmospheric, with its warm, well-placed lighting. It was clearly designed for young couples. Remove the tables. Replace them with a bed. This is the staff lounge. It's not open to the public. Unauthorized personnel should leave immediately, Fu Hang said, his voice cold and detached to mask his embarrassment. Oh, come on. Why don't you tell me about any hidden services? I've got money now, I can afford it. Qin Yuchu tilted her head, her gaze sweeping over the two phones on the bed. Both screens were lit up. One displayed a social media app, the other a game. Just pay for your milk tea first. Fu Hang shot her a glare. All right, if you're not going to serve me, I'm off to work. Don't want the boss getting annoyed with me. Qin Yuchu shrugged, got up, and pushed aside the curtain to head downstairs. The social media app showed Shen Qingluan's profile. Does he really need to stare at it 24/7? By the way, the company team building tomorrow. Are you sure you're not coming? It's a 2-day, 1-night mountaintop camping trip, you know? Qin Yuchu's tempting voice drifted up from downstairs. 2 days, 1 night? Camping at Qianfeng Mountain Scenic Area? The head behind the curtain popped out again. That's right. Qin Yuchu looked up, a playful glint in her eyes as she watched Fu Hang. Only an idiot would go. Isn't it nice, just lying here? Go mountain climbing. Fu Hang scoffed, but inwardly he was ecstatic. Qianfeng Mountain Scenic Area was about a 2-hour drive from Hansheng. A mountaintop camping trip and a company team building one at that. There was no way Shen Qingluan would need him during that time. Didn't this mean he'd get 2 days of paid leave? At most, he'd just have to clock in online, right? Fu Hang was thrilled. Besides, that woman Shen Qingluan had been acting strangely lately. Her favorability rating was all over the place, currently at 71. 12%. It would be good to disappear from her sight for a few days, let her cool down, and see how outstanding the other male white-collar workers in the company were. Now that he was promoted, wouldn't his social circle also move up a notch? While Fu Hang was secretly gloating, Qin Yuchu had already returned to the company. Yuchu, what are you doing here today? Shen Qingluan bumped into Qin Yuchu in the hallway. Isn't the camping trip tomorrow? I still haven't found a partner, Qin Yuchu said, looking troubled. For the team-building camping trip, to ensure feasibility, the company had arranged for 2 people per tent, with free teaming. Those who didn't find a partner would be assigned one by the company. Is the CEO really not attending? Shen Qingluan leaned in, lowering her voice. Qin Yuchu glanced away, pouting slightly with a hint of complaint. Seeing this, Shen Qingluan cursed inwardly. She had no idea what tricks this girl had pulled to get the CEO to even grant her signing authority. Shen Qingluan secretly sized Qin Yuchu up and down, feeling even more resentful. A hoodie and jeans, that outfit was a major workplace taboo. Yet, after looking her over twice, she couldn't find anything out of place. Youth truly was an asset. How about we team up? Shen Qingluan affectionately took Qin Yuchu's arm and started walking towards Qin Yuchu's office. Since you have signing authority, you're practically the Empress Dowager pulling the strings. Sucking up to you isn't shameful. Besides, if I get on your good side, won't I have more leverage when I see the CEO? Sister Qingluan, you want to partner with me? But didn't the plan say that mid to senior level management can bring family? A flicker of doubt crossed Qin Yuchu's eyes. Oh, stop it. I'm still single, you know, Shen Qingluan said with a playful pout, lightly pinching Qin Yuchu. Sister Qingluan, you're so outstanding. There must be a lot of people pursuing you, right? What about you? I don't believe no one was chasing after you in college, Shen Qingluan said, a sudden thought striking her as she spoke, seemingly casually. Just a bunch of kids, Qin Yuchu replied, dismissively. Just as I thought. Shen Qingluan's eyes narrowed. She couldn't help but look at the bracelet on Qin Yuchu's wrist, the one she had given her. She was still wearing it. Wait, if she always wore this bracelet, then when she interacted with Fu Hang, would he recognize it? She had interacted with Fu Hang quite a bit these past few days. At this thought, a sudden warmth spread through Shen Qingluan's heart. That man, even if he recognized it, he'd pretend not to know anything, wouldn't he? All right, if it's just the 2 of us, can we even carry the tent up? Qin Yuchu suddenly seemed to remember something and stopped walking. The purpose of team building was to improve cohesion, and the decision-making leadership loved to incorporate elements like tempering, enduring hardship, and collaboration. So for this event, all equipment was distributed at the foot of the mountain, and everyone had to carry it up themselves. Oh please, our Yuchu is so pretty. A bunch of male colleagues will definitely be fighting to help you, Shen Qingluan replied, as if it were a matter of course. But Qin Yuchu didn't say anything. She turned her head and just looked at Shen Qingluan quietly, a faint, unreadable smile on her face. Sorry, that was thoughtless of me. Shen Qingluan's heart skipped a beat. This girl has such a strong presence. The earlier teasing was one thing, but what she just said was truly inappropriate. Why Qin Yuchu was the CEO's assistant, why she had signing authority, it was an open secret among the company's senior management. Bringing it up repeatedly like this, wasn't it like a slap in her own face? Then, Shen Qingluan was stumped. If it were just her, the men in the company would definitely seize the opportunity to shower her with attention. She'd never had to worry about this. But if she was with Qin Yuchu and a group of men surrounded her, wouldn't Qin Yuchu feel awkward? And if one or two of them, unaware of the situation, tried to get close to Qin Yuchu, then she would be the one in an awkward position. Would she protect Qin Yuchu, discourage the men, let happen, or enjoy the attention together? If the CEO heard about it later, no man would like his woman being fawned over by other men, right? This was indeed a big problem. How about, I asked that friend of mine from back home, see if he's free tomorrow? Shen Qingluan forced a smile, her gaze sweeping over Qin Yuchu's bracelet, and suddenly had an idea. She could have Fu Hang join as her family member. He could help carry things, and it would avoid any awkwardness. Fu Hang's persona as the delivery guy from her hometown was already well established in the company. No one would seriously think there was anything between them. Qianfeng Mountain was a 5A scenic spot. A mountaintop camping trip wasn't cheap. The gentle and kind Sister Qingluan, not wasting company benefits, looking out for her friend from back home, letting the delivery guy experience a bit of luxury. It would further solidify her image. Perfect. Fu Hang, would that be okay? Qin Yuchu asked, surprised. He's usually very busy with work, and in all these years, he's never mentioned going on a trip anywhere. This is a good chance to bring him along and let him relax a bit, Shen Qingluan said, her plan becoming clearer. That could work, I suppose. But will Fu Hang have time? He seems pretty busy usually. Qin Yuchu sneered inwardly. Lying around? Huh? Let's see how you manage that now. Don't worry, I'll convince him, Shen Qingluan said with a gentle smile. She had considered many things, but the one thing she hadn't considered was whether Fu Hang would agree. That man had never refused her anything, let alone a mountaintop camping trip. Then we shouldn't take the company bus, right? Does Fu Hang have a car? Of course we won't take the bus. I also need to get there early to coordinate things, since it's an HR-led event. You don't need to worry about any of that. Then thank you, Sister Qingluan, Qin Yuchu said with a smile, waving her hand as she pushed open her office door. The car, that's a problem. Shen Qingluan frowned to herself as she turned. Fu Hang did have a car, but that little commuter EV? Forget comfort. What if it ran out of juice on the way? And having the HR manager and the president's assistant ride in that. Never mind herself. Would Qin Yuchu even agree? Get the company to send another car? The travel agency was only responsible for the bus transport in the plan. Mid to high-level management drove themselves. It was called team building, but if you thought those leaders would actually rough it together with ordinary employees, you were naive. It just showed you didn't understand the workplace. Everyone drove their own cars, so naturally, no other vehicles would be arranged. Which senior manager didn't have a car? Shen Qingluan had originally planned to hitch a ride with Su Changhe to ease the tension in their relationship and also get noticed by the other senior execs. But now, lying on the second floor of the milk tea shop, Fu Hang's eyelid twitched uncontrollably. He'd just whiffed 2 ultimates in a row in his game, leading to their crystal being destroyed, and he'd even been reported by his teammates. Freaky. Fu Hang licked his lips. For someone using a game-boosting persona as a cover, his actual gaming skills couldn't be too shabby. He subconsciously glanced at his other phone. He had a nagging feeling something bad was about to happen. Fu Hang, are you free tomorrow? A message suddenly popped onto his screen. Fu Hang's heart lurched. Holy crap. Seriously? Aren't you going camping tomorrow? Yes. Fu Hang typed back instantly. Company team building tomorrow. Camping at Qianfeng Mountain. Want to come? Shen Qingluan was being uncharacteristically direct. Fuck. A vein throbbed on Fu Hang's forehead. A 71. 12% favorability rating, and you're asking me to go camping? With the company? Has Yuanbua trading run out of actual employees to invite? All this effort I put into playing delivery guy, for what? Huh? Me? Can I? His instant reply practically vibrated with feigned excitement. Management is allowed to bring a +1. I was thinking, since you play games all day, which is really bad for your health, this would be a good chance for you to get out and relax a bit. Shen Qingluan had swapped family for +1, subtly creating a little more distance. Qingluan, you're so thoughtful. Folded hands, Fu Hang, barefoot and seething, paced his attic floor, nearly crushing the phone in his hand. Okay, Then I'll pick you up tomorrow. You'll pick me up? Fu Hang froze. Has this woman completely lost it? I need to go early to coordinate things, so I'm not taking a group bus. I borrowed a car from a friend. Fu Hang's lip twitched. He typed a single space into the input box, but no actual characters. On her end, it would just show typing 10, 9, 5, 2, 1. Don't get the wrong idea. It's over a 2-hour drive, and it's out in a scenic area. I was just worried your little EV might run out of juice, which would be really inconvenient. And there it was. Exactly 10 seconds later, her follow-up message arrived. I know. Fu Hang deleted the space, then waited another 5 seconds before hitting send. The two simple words were laced with an air of endless resignation and profound self-blame. Actually, why don't I just meet you at your complex gate tomorrow? Even though it's the weekend, there'll still be morning rush hour traffic, and driving will be tricky. Fu Hang waited 3 more seconds, then sent another message. That works too. My friend is dropping off the car tonight anyway. I'll bring you breakfast. See you tomorrow. Putting down his phone, Fu Hang wore an expression of utter despair. My paid vacation. This couldn't have anything to do with Qin Yuchu, could it? He couldn't help but recall the figure in the hoodie and jeans from that morning. Suddenly, a vague sense of unease pricked at him. He picked up his phone again, but couldn't bring himself to call Qin Yuchu. Whatever. This is work. Getting paid 200,000 to go hiking and camping with his goddess. What was there to complain about? Early the next morning, Fu Hang, neatly dressed, stood at the entrance to Shen Qingluan's residential complex. He glanced instinctively at the guard booth. The bleary-eyed security guard inside wasn't the usual friendly older guy. After he sent 2 messages, a black ADQ-7 pulled out from inside the complex. Fu Hang's brow furrowed. That license plate looked very familiar. What was his car doing here? The SUV stopped in front of him. The door opened, and Shen Qingluan, all smiles and dressed in athletic wear, stepped out. A crop top and yoga pants perfectly accentuated her slender figure, a textbook example of the innocent seductress look. This is the car your friend lent you? Fu Hang asked, his expression odd, completely forgetting to compliment her outfit. Get in. You can adjust the seat yourself. The power controls are on the left. Shen Qingluan took the breakfast from Fu Hang's hand and walked around to the passenger side. Fu Hang, feigning chivalry, hurried over to open the passenger door for her. On his way back to the driver's side, he made a point of walking around the rear of the car, carefully checking the license plate again. Holy hell, it really is this car. We need to swing by the office first to pick someone up. She's coming with us. Shen Qingluan fastened her seatbelt, placed the breakfast aside, and subtly observed Fu Hang's expression out of the corner of her eye. An ADQ-7 wasn't cheap. Renting one for a day cost nearly 1,000 yuan. She had painstakingly picked it out from a rental agency. Since she was taking him camping, she naturally had to give him a little nudge. A bit of a carrot, followed by a bit of a stick. Otherwise, if this man got too full of himself and caused an awkward scene in front of Qin Yuchu, it would be mortifying for everyone. Okay, I won't turn on the GPS yet then. Fu Hang adjusted his seat, desperately trying to conceal the bizarre expression on his face. Why did that license plate look so familiar? Because this car was his. A bonus from some performance review system. Since it didn't fit his current undercover persona, he rarely had a chance to drive it. After it had gathered dust in his garage for 6 months, he, embracing the principle of squeeze every last drop of value out of it, had sent it off to a car rental agency. And this? Borrowed from a friend? Fine. I'll just consider the rental fee an unexpected business trip perk. Fu Hang said little during the drive, his focus on the road intense. Shen Qingluan smirked to herself, deciding not to needle him further. Pull over at that milk tea shop just ahead. I'm going to grab some drinks, Shen Qingluan said, putting down her phone and pointing to a Gunlu milk tea storefront. I can go, Fu Hang offered, an eyebrow arching slightly. No, it's fine, I'll go. Parking is tricky here, so it's better if you stay with the car. Shen Qingluan was already pushing her door open. Fu Hang glanced towards the milk tea shop. It had just opened, and the young server, the one who always cheerfully greeted the female owner as boss lady, was gaping at him, utterly stunned. Fu Hang shot him a sharp look, then quickly made a zip-it gesture. Once Shen Qingluan was inside, Fu Hang popped open the glove compartment. He flipped open the vehicle registration, just as he thought. Owner, Fu Hang. With an inward eye roll, he quickly pocketed the document. Better to avoid his goddess facing an awkward moment later, which would also be a pain for him to explain. Shen Qingluan emerged quickly, holding a carrier with 3 large mango pomelo sago drinks. Okay, business trip perk plus 68 yuan x3. As he glanced back towards the shop, Fu Hang caught the server's eye, The kid was looking at him with an expression of pure, dumbstruck awe. Let Yuchu sit in the front later. She gets carsick. Getting back into the car, Shen Qingluan settled into the back seat. The person we're picking up is Qin Yuchu. Fu Hang twisted around, surprised. She and I are partnered for this event. She's actually the president's assistant at the company, Shen Qingluan reminded him pointedly. This also served to inform him that Qin Yuchu's rank was technically higher than hers, so her sitting in front was only proper. Furthermore, it was a subtle warning. He needed to be sharp and observant for the next 2 days. I knew you were behind this. For a split second, as Fu Hang turned back to face front, raw frustration flashed in his eyes. And, just between us, Shen Qingluan added, lowering her voice as if sharing a sudden confidence. Yuchu is also our president's girlfriend. Fu Hang's left cheek, the side Shen Qingluan couldn't see, gave a sharp, violent twitch. The car pulled up to the company's main entrance. Qin Yuchu, also in athletic wear and bouncing a backpack on her shoulders, came skipping out. In contrast to Shen Qingluan's sleek, form-fitting athletic gear, Qin Yuchu's outfit was loose and comfortable. At first glance, its style wasn't all that different from a high school gym uniform, just in more vibrant colors. Fu Hang found himself staring, momentarily lost in thought as the image of their first encounter flashed through his mind. A young girl in high school uniform pants, helplessly cornered by a group of delinquents, head bowed, her evasions both timid and stubbornly defiant. Qingluanjia, Fu Hang hi. The car door swung open, and a beaming, sweet-faced Yuchu hopped in. Yuchu, sorry to keep you waiting. Have you had breakfast? Fu Hang bought it, Shen Qingluan said warmly. Yep, I've eaten. Thanks. Qin Yuchu closed the car door, her eyes curiously scanning the car's interior. Here, this milk tea is for you. Wow. Qingluanjia, how did you know I love this place? Qin Yuchu took it, beaming. I always see it on your desk. Just be careful, or you'll get chubby. Haha. Let me tell you a secret. The owner of this shop is super handsome, you know? Qin Yuchu said, her tongue playfully touching her canine tooth, a knowing smile on her face. Huh, really? Shen Qingluan was a little taken aback. She glanced at Qin Yuchu, only to find Yuchu looking at Fu Hang. Seatbelt. Fu Hang cut in, starting the car. Shen Qingluan frowned. The milk tea shop owner is handsome? Handsome enough for Qin Yuchu to say that. To be honest, she rarely bought milk tea for herself. Whatever, he just owns a milk tea shop. We're counting on you today, Fu Hang, Qin Yuchu said, fastening her seatbelt and turning to look at him earnestly. No, I should be thanking you. This is my first time ever going camping. Fu Hang managed a strained smile, struggling to get his emotions in check. Damn it, he thought, this woman is definitely trouble. It was Qingluanjia. She felt bad that you worked so hard and wanted to take you on a trip to relax. Qin Yuchu unwrapped her milk tea and poked the straw in. But instead of drinking, she placed it in the center console's cup holder. Then she took out the other cup and did the same. Thanks, Fu Hang said, catching her actions out of the corner of his eye. He glanced discreetly at the rearview mirror. He wasn't sure if the thanks was for the milk tea or the trip. Oh, by the way, where are you guys from originally? Qin Yuchu asked, looking straight ahead, her tone casual. Fu Hang's eyebrow twitched. He freed a hand to grab his milk tea, stuck the straw in his mouth, and took a long, hard sip. You guys? Where are we from? I'm a local. Shen Qingluan's from the south, though. Isn't this usually a we're from the same hometown kind of setup? I wasn't prepared for this line. Fu Hang and I were actually university classmates. He's a local, and I'm from the coast, Shen Qingluan interjected, her response quick, almost a blurt. She then glanced nervously at Qin Yuchu, who was also sipping her milk tea, her movements mirroring Fu Hang's, especially the way her cheeks puffed out as she slowly chewed. Huh, you were university classmates? Then how come? We graduated from the same university. One of us is a manager at a big company, and the other delivers food. Qingluan said that to spare my feelings. Fu Hang's simp brain finally kicked in, a chill running down his spine. Wow, I had no idea you two were classmates. Qin Yuchu turned her head, her gaze flicking between them. Yes, Fu Hang and Shen Qingluan were classmates, or rather, they'd gone to the same university, not the same class, or even the same major. Shen Qingluan was in human resources, and Fu Hang studied Chinese language and literature. The sudden mention of this sent Fu Hang's mind wandering. So, I've been simping for more than 3 years. The system activated 3 years ago, but I was already Shen Qingluan simp even before that. Just, not as professionally, without the system. We've known each other for 6 years now, haven't we? Shen Qingluan's voice was suddenly tinged with emotion. especially after seeing Fu Hang and Yu Chu drink their milk tea in almost the exact same way. A strange, subtle feeling stirred within her. Whoa! Qin Yu Chu exclaimed dramatically, leaning back slightly and giving Fu Hang a very pointed look. Fu Hang looked distinctly uncomfortable. He took a hard gulp of his milk tea, his puffed-out cheeks a convenient distraction. Shen Qingluan's heart lurched. That look Yu Chu just gave Fu Hang? She was a seasoned veteran, weathered by countless storms. Her intuition for danger and threats was practically instinct. That look, something's off. It's another 2 hours to get there. You two should get some rest. We woke up early, and there's hiking later. Fu Hang interjected, smoothly changing the subject. ADD, navigate to Qianfeng Mountain Scenic Area? Destination set to Qianfeng Mountain Scenic Area Visitor Center. Currently planning route. Distance to destination. The car's electronic voice announced. Shen Qingluan frowned again. This Fu Hang. He seems very familiar with this car. This is so fancy. Fu Hang, is this your car? Qin Yu Chu suddenly started touching things, exploring the interior. It belongs to another friend of mine. Shen Qingluan cut in quickly. You should get some rest. We'll be doing a lot of exercise today, Fu Hang said, turning his head, a flicker of warning in his eyes. Qin Yu Chu had already opened the glove compartment and was rummaging through it. Oh, Qin Yu Chu relented, leaned back, and, surprisingly, closed her eyes obediently. Shen Qingluan, in the back seat, felt incredibly uneasy. What exactly is going on? They've only met a few times. How are they already so chummy? Perhaps it was because she'd woken up too early. Rocked by the car's motion, Shen Qingluan, curled up in the back seat, slowly drifted off to sleep. She didn't sleep soundly, and she had a dream. She dreamt of her college days, of the first time she met Fu Hang. It was a rainy afternoon. Outside the campus mail center, she stood holding an umbrella, staring helplessly at a huge package on the ground. A male classmate from high school had sent it to her, a big box of snacks he'd bought online. He'd only told her about it after it arrived, wanting it to be a surprise. She hadn't realized just how big the box would be. Excuse me, can I help you with that? That was the first thing Fu Hang ever said to her. Can I help you with that? Not. Do you need help? He'd sounded nervous, shy, even a little timid, yet hopeful. And so, naturally, they had their first real interaction. That day, he carried the box while she held the umbrella for him. The rain soaked through the cardboard and drenched half of his body. Before he left, she opened the box and gave him a bag of chips from inside. After that, he started helping her out from time to time, picking up her packages, buying her breakfast, saving her a seat in the study hall, even copying notes for her general elective lectures. Their relationship was neither distant nor close. It wasn't romantic, but they weren't exactly close friends either. Until one day, they ran into each other at the library. He rushed out to buy her favorite milk tea, and when he returned, she invited him to sit with her. He seemed a little nervous, so when she reached for her milk tea, she'd accidentally picked up his. That one's mine. I've already drunk from it, he'd stammered, completely stunned. I know, but I already finished mine. Shen Qingluan felt a flicker of doubt. Wait, that's not right. I don't remember saying that. Back then, I explained it away by saying I was too engrossed in my book to notice. No, that's not my voice. Shen Qingluan jolted awake. The first thing she saw was Qin Yu Chu, head tilted, looking provocatively at Fu Hang while taking a large sip of her milk tea. Her gaze fell to the center console. An empty cup sat there, a faint lipstick stain on its straw. Shen Qingluan's heart hammered at her chest. What on earth is this wretched girl up to? Back then, I never actually drank from his cup. I just pretended to. But you? You really don't mind drinking from a cup another man has used? Don't be so stingy. You don't even like sweet things. Here, have a preserved plum. Qin Yu Chu's voice was soft, but her tone made Shen Qingluan extremely uncomfortable. Not interested. Fu Hang shot her a glare. Good boy, open up. Where are we? Shen Qingluan's temples throbbed. She instinctively stirred and slowly sat up. Almost there. You're awake. Fu Hang was instantly on high alert, his eyes darting to the rearview mirror. Awake? If I hadn't woken up, you would have shoved it right in my mouth. Shen Qingluan thought. Sorry, I went to bed too late last night. Shen Qingluan feigned a stretch, her gaze drifting towards Qin Yu Chu. Qingluan jia, want a preserved plum? Qin Yu Chu popped the plum in her mouth and turned around with a sweet smile. No thanks, I'm not a fan of sour things. Shen Qingluan narrowed her eyes slightly, looked down to fix her makeup, and her gaze fell again on the empty milk tea cup. A straw? Lipstick? Is Qin Yu Chu wearing makeup today? She looked up, slightly surprised, and indeed, noticed Qin Yu Chu looked different from usual. Before, she always had a bare face, but today she had on no makeup. No wonder. When I got in the car, I even marveled at how different you've looked. So she was wearing makeup all along. That scheming bitch. You haven't slept at all? Shen Qingluan put away her compact mirror, forcing a smile. Compared to Qin Youchu's no makeup look, her own makeup seemed a bit too obvious. Isn't she supposed to be a poor student? How are her makeup skills so good? I dozed off for a bit. Just woke up, Qin Youchu said. Fu Hang, though, he's been driving without a break. Fu Hang, thank you. Should I take over driving for a bit up ahead? Shen Qingluan's tone instantly became incredibly gentle. She reached over the seat and lightly squeezed Fu Hang's shoulder. This is nothing, it's not that far. Fu Hang was flattered and startled, his body even trembling slightly. That tremor wasn't faked. Miss, I'm driving here. What you just did, strictly speaking, counts as reckless driving. A 200 yuan fine and 3 points on my license. Good heavens, I'm just a simp. What have I done to deserve this from you, two young misses? Just let me go. Can't you just let me worship you in peace? My demands really aren't high. Then I'll give you a proper massage when we get out of the car. Drive slowly, we have plenty of time. Shen Qingluan seemed to have a switch flipped, going on the offensive. Qin Youchu said nothing, just turned her head to the side, quietly looking out the window. She had already put the milk tea back and was casually popping preserved plums in her mouth, one after another. The Audi Q7 arrived at the scenic area's parking lot right on time, as indicated by the GPS. The person in charge of liaison was already waiting there. Shen Qingluan wasn't in the first group to arrive. After all, she was a manager. The personnel truly responsible for the liaison had been there half an hour earlier. You guys look around. I'll go coordinate things, Shen Qingluan said with extreme reluctance as she got out of the car. She really wanted to take Fu Hang with her. With him around, things would be much easier for her. But this was a company team-building event, after all. Though the HR department wasn't large, there were still men in it. What would it look like having an outsider fussing around her? Fu Hang's persona was supposed to be a delivery guy from her hometown. Need any help? Fu Hang asked, considerate as always. No need. I'm just handling some coordination. Others will take care of the specifics. Shen Qingluan replied gently. Qingluan, yeah, you go ahead. I'll keep an eye on Fu Hang for you. Qin Youchu's smile was still very sweet. Just try not to cause Youchu any trouble. Shen Qingluan cursed inwardly. You're the one I'm worried about. You're the CEO's woman. What's with all these little schemes towards Fu Hang? Are you crazy? How could I? I'll be needing big brother Fu Hang to take good care of me for the next 2 days. Qin Youchu lightly swung her ponytail. Shen Qingluan forced a smile, gave Fu Hang a meaningful look, and quickly walked towards the crowd. You'll take care of me, right? Gidge. Qin Youchu leaned in, her voice barely a whisper. The last word, Gidge, seamlessly shifted into a seductive tone reminiscent of Sudaji. What on earth are you trying to do? Fu Hang couldn't take it anymore. I want a grilled sausage, Qin Youchu said, pointing to the small shop at the entrance of the scenic area. Go buy it yourself, Fu Hang said without turning his head. No, I want you to buy it for me, Qin Youchu insisted, pouting. Fu Hang shot her a glare and turned his back on her. Out of sight, out of mind. Qingluan Jia, do you want a grilled sausage? Qin Youchu suddenly raised her voice. Shen Qingluan, who hadn't gone far, turned back, looking puzzled. Want a sausage? Qin Youchu pointed to the small shop again and repeated herself. Huh, okay, Shen Qingluan replied, a bit confused about the situation. Qingluan, I'll go get it for you. Want anything to drink? Fu Hang replied enthusiastically, already heading towards the shop. Qin Youchu smiled again, her small chin held high with pride. Several large buses pulled up one after another. Watching the stream of people pour out, Fu Hang realized for the first time the sheer size of his company. Speaking of which, organizing a team-building event like this must cost a fortune, right? This money, is it mine? Or the system's? Private cars of varying grades also began to arrive one after another. Shen Qingluan's interaction partners shifted from reception staff to company executives. While those people talked, they would, more or less, cast glances in his direction. But Fu Hang knew they weren't looking at him, but at the CEO's rumored girlfriend beside him. He sat unceremoniously on a rock, head down, trying his best to minimize his presence. Aren't you going over to say hello? These are all your capable subordinates. Qin Youchu, seemingly without any idle burden herself, sat down next to Fu Hang when she saw him sit. Are you doing this on purpose? Fu Hang shifted slightly to the side, trying to maintain a safe distance. Speaking of which, does really none of them recognize you? Qin Youchu asked, curious. Fu Hang turned his head away and directly pulled out a cigarette, lighting it. He rarely smoked, especially in front of girls, but right now he felt he couldn't vent his frustration without one. That bald guy with the beer belly, that's Su Changhe, the company's executive vice president. He calls the shots in the company now. Qin Yuchu, completely unfazed by Fu Hang's dismissal, introduced him as if no one else was around. So this is the guy who spent so much of my money on this damn team-building event. Fu Hang's eyes narrowed, and he gritted his teeth in frustration. Huh, you should at least recognize this one, right? Qin Yuchu raised an eyebrow, a playful smile tugging at her lips. Su Changhe, who was talking with Shen Qingluan, suddenly broke into a warm smile and hurried towards someone. The company's legal counsel, Zhang Xiang, Lawyer Zhang. Lawyer Zhang wasn't just Yuanbo Trading's legal counsel. He himself was a renowned top lawyer in Hansheng, and even throughout Huagua. Handling legal affairs for Yuanbo Trading was merely one of his many projects. So, in Su Chang's eyes, Lawyer Zhang was likely the spokesperson for the mysterious financial backers behind Yuanbo. Ah, Lawyer Zhang, you finally made it. I was worried you wouldn't have time. It's the weekend, and my daughter doesn't have school, so I brought her along to join in the fun, Lawyer Zhang replied politely. A young girl of about 15 or 16 followed behind him. She had a very cool and detached demeanor and merely offered a slight smile to those around her. So, this is Lawyer Zhang's precious daughter? She's truly. Shen Qingluan hadn't finished her polite remark when she saw Lawyer Zhang's eyes suddenly fix on something, then light up with delight. Excuse me, I need to go say hello. Lawyer Zhang tugged his daughter's sleeve and hurried towards Fu Hang. Oh, Assistant Qin is over there. Su Changhe, noticing Lawyer Zhang's urgency, quickly stepped aside to make way for him. President Su, this Lawyer Zhang, having been completely ignored, Shen Qingluan felt a pang of displeasure. I think I understand now. Su Changhe maintained his smile, but his tone suddenly grew grave. What is it? Shen Qingluan, startled, quickly moved to stand before Su Changhe. This Qin Yuchu. She might not be who we think she is, Su Changhe said heavily. Isn't she just some kept woman? A mere gold digger, enough to make a prominent lawyer like Zhang treat her this way? Su Changhe narrowed his eyes and shot Shen Qingluan a glare. You mean, she and the president might have that kind of relationship, but it's definitely not that simple. Considering her resume, she could be a front for the mysterious president or the consortium behind him. Are you saying? If my judgment is correct, Qin Yuchu is the next president of Yuanbo Trading. Su Chang's tone was grim, tinged with deep resentment. Shen Qingluan fell silent. Compared to Su Changhe's palpable resentment, the jealousy surging in her heart was like a tempest. Why her? Just because she's young and beautiful? Just because she aced her exams in school? She's just a little bitch. Look at how she's flirting with Fu Hang. She won't even leave a delivery guy alone. That Lawyer Zhang, who had completely ignored her, was now standing somewhat deferentially before Qin Yuchu, which indirectly confirmed Su Chang's suspicions. Stop overthinking things. You and I are just employees. Let's just focus on our work. Unless you can. Su Changhe didn't finish his sentence and slowly turned to leave. Shen Qingluan lowered her head slightly, her thoughts hidden. She knew exactly what Su Changhe meant by unless. In terms of external qualities, she believed she wasn't inferior to Qin Yuchu in any way. In fact, she even surpassed her in many aspects. When judging a woman, younger isn't always better. Clearly, Su Changhe thought so too. Unless she could become the president's wife. She wouldn't even need to be his wife. Just replacing Qin Yuchu would be enough. I didn't expect you to be here as well. Standing before Qin Yuchu, Lawyer Zhang instead gave a slight bow towards Fu Hang. Fu Hang acted as if he hadn't heard, or perhaps he had, but, wanting to avoid suspicion, didn't dare interrupt the conversation between Lawyer Zhang and Assistant Qin. He took a few steps back, a cigarette dangling from his lips, and stood at a distance. Hello, Lawyer Zhang. Thank you for your help the other day. Qin Yuchu politely stepped forward to shake his hand. All in a day's work. Lawyer Zhang, however, directly clasped his fist to his palm and gave Qin Yuchu a slight bow. A handshake? Was she kidding? Her man had such a peculiar temperament. What if he had some sort of aversion to physical contact? Lawyer Zhang, of course, knew Fu Hang. Never mind Yuanbo Trading. He had personally handled the paperwork for all those luxury cars and mansions. He had even personally drafted and managed Yuanbo Trading's non-disclosure agreements. In Lawyer Zhang's eyes, Fu Hang's identity was utterly mysterious, especially such massive capital flows that, while completely legal, left no traceable source. Wasn't that utterly terrifying? It wasn't something that could be accomplished merely by being rich. As for how rich, Lawyer Zhang couldn't even begin to imagine. To silently acquire Yuan trading and then completely ignore it post-acquisition. Just how extravagantly wealthy and powerful did one have to be? Not to mention, Fu Heng paid him an astronomical salary, so much so that he was now practically in retirement mode. Apart from handling Fu Heng's affairs, his team hardly took on any other cases. High pay, little work. Where else could one find such a boss? He seems to be. Seeing Fu Heng completely disregard Lawyer Zhang, Qin Yuchu was inwardly alarmed and tried to offer a few words of explanation for Fu Heng. I understand. Lawyer Zhang quickly interrupted, making sure to turn sideways, partially facing Fu Heng, to dispel any misunderstanding his earlier presumptuousness might have caused. Well then, you two talk. I'll take my daughter to get her gear. Miss Qin, if you need anything at all, feel free to find me anytime. Lawyer Zhang clasped his fist again and quickly led his daughter away. Those nearby witnessed the exchange, and in the minds of the workplace veterans, Qin Yuchu's perceived importance increased significantly. They might not have seen things as clearly as Su Changhe, but they all retracted any previous disdain for Qin Yuchu. Just as Su Changhe had said, given prominent Lawyer Zhang's status, there was no need for him to be so respectful to a mere canary. Dad, is that lady your boss's wife? Zhang Xiaolin, who hadn't spoken until now, looked at her father curiously. Don't pry into work matters. And why didn't you greet her? You have no manners, Lawyer Zhang chided her gently. I don't know if she's the boss's wife, but it's highly probable she's the next president of Yuan Trading. His judgment stemmed from that newly purchased apartment. Compared to being the president's wife, he was more inclined to believe she was a front Fu Heng was cultivating. Otherwise, with Fu Heng's financial resources, why would he only buy a mere 2 million yuan apartment for a woman? Wouldn't it be better to take her back to Yinshuwan? Therefore, their relationship was likely one of superior and subordinate, or at least not that kind of simple romantic involvement. Also, don't just focus on her being pretty. She was the top scorer in the college entrance exams, and she's a genius who's first in all her subjects at Hanqing University now. Perhaps recalling something, Lawyer Zhang quickly added, trying to positively shape his daughter's values. Wow, Zhang Xiaolin was completely awestruck. At her age, being the top scorer in the college entrance exam was like a lifetime achievement award. They've all gone far ahead. Come sit. Qin Yuchu sat back down on the rock. Sit my ass. Time to get our gear. Fu Heng heaved a heavy sigh, plastered a fawning smile on his face, and ran towards the group. Qin Yuchu tilted her head, watching Fu Heng's retreating figure, her brow furrowing deeper. What on earth did this man do? Even Lawyer Zhang was so respectful towards him. Even after Fu Heng had walked far off, Qin Yuchu couldn't figure it out. Shrugging indifferently, Qin Yuchu slowly stood up, slung her backpack over her shoulders, and leisurely made her way towards them. No matter who you are, to me, you have only one identity. My boss. The group gradually began to move up the mountain. Fu Heng, carrying a large hiking backpack, followed Shen Qingluan with a radiant smile. As the event organizer, Shen Qingluan naturally needed to bring up the rear. This was her own arbitrary decision. Why? To follow Fu Heng, of course. Sorry, I totally forgot I was supposed to bring up the rear. How about you and the others head up first, Yuchu? Shen Qingluan said apologetically. What's the rush? I'm go back here. We're a team, aren't we? Qin Yuchu shrugged casually. Is your bag heavy? Want me to carry it? Fu Heng chimed in at just the right moment. When it came to work, he was always meticulous. That's the least you could expect from someone making 100,000 a day. No need. If you can't even carry your own bag, might as well skip the hike and wait at the bottom. Qin Yuchu cut in before Shen Qingluan could answer, hiking her backpack up her shoulder without a hint of politeness. Shen Qingluan cursed silently. He was asking me, okay, do you have any idea how heavy my bag is? Yuchu's right. You're already doing more than enough carrying the tents and supplies. We can manage our own bags, Shen Qingluan said, turning her head and smiling warmly at Fu Heng. If it gets too much, let me know. I've still got one hand free. Fu Heng raised a large bag in his hand, filled with drinking water and snacks for the three of them. His other hand was indeed empty. The company retreat included a group hike with a campout at a designated spot. Lunch was DIY along the way, while dinner would include a small ceremony and some planned activities. People were moving out in waves. As they passed, the company's management kept greeting Qin Yuchu warmly. Attorney Zhang's previous performance clearly left a strong impression. Shen Qingluan forced a smile, but felt increasingly conflicted and envious inside. Shall we head out? Qin Yuchu waved her hand as the crowd thinned, and started walking briskly at the front. Shen Qingluan quickly followed. Fu Hang sighed, tightened the straps of his massive hiking backpack, and reluctantly got moving. That pack. It held a portable tent, lightweight and expensive, sure, but still a two-person tent. Not to mention the bag of water bottles, bread, crackers, and fruit in his hand. It wasn't that his stamina couldn't take it. Thanks to the system's bizarre performance bonus protocols, his current physical condition was enough to make him avoid health checkups altogether. No, what really annoyed him was the fact that he could be lounging on the big bed in room 1 of Yinshu Hotel, typing away on his phone. Where's Qingluan now? Is Qingluan tired? You're amazing, Qingluan. Be careful, Qingluan. He had these lines down to an art. Effortless, relaxing, and full of fake sincerity. Fu Hang, pass me a water bottle. After walking about 10 meters, Qin Yuchu suddenly turned around. Already thirsty? Fu Hang was confused. The sausage earlier was salty. Without waiting for a response, Qin Yuchu stepped up and pulled 2 bottles out of the supply bag. Here, Qingluan Jia. One for you. Oh, thanks. Shen Qingluan took it, baffled. Why are you giving this to me? I'm not even thirsty. Qin Yuchu led the way. Shen Qingluan followed close behind, and Fu Hang trailed behind them at a slower pace. Their progress was sluggish, for one simple reason. Qin Yuchu was unbelievably fussy. The fruit the company gave us is amazing. Qingluan Jia. Do you know which vendor they used? Qingluan Jia, help me take a photo. Fu Hang, wait over there for a sec. Fu Hang, hand me a box of cookies. Qingluan Jia, is there a restroom up ahead? I drank too much water. Fu Hang, another bottle. I finished the last one. Shen Qingluan smiled on the outside, but mentally she was swearing up a storm. Didn't she grow up poor? Why is she so high maintenance? We've barely walked any distance, and the supplies are nearly gone. And didn't she already start munching on snacks back in the car? Milk tea, chips, sausages, preserved plums. And how the hell does she still have that tiny waist? With all the junk she eats? Does she have some kind of celestial physique that selectively grows fat? That's not just unfair, it's unnatural. It's illegal by the laws of biology. Hey, look, there's a river down that way. Let's go check it out. Qin Yuchu pointed to a narrow trail veering off to the side. That's not the main path to the summit. Shen Qingluan frowned at the trail. It didn't look too rough, but it definitely wasn't the official route. Aren't we out here to explore nature? Come on, follow me. Qin Yuchu said cheerfully, bursting with energy like she was trying to burn off all the snacks she'd inhaled. Shen Qingluan didn't want to go at all, but the image of the smiling higher-ups flashed in her mind. This girl's the future CEO, she reminded herself. Better to cozy up to her than deal with Su Changhe and his wandering hands. So she followed. Fu Hang rolled his eyes. If it weren't for Shen Qingluan, he might have already smacked the girl. He tied the supply bag to his backpack, took a deep breath, and kept going. That bag, once heavy and packed full, now held just 2 bottles of water. 2 steps later, Fu Hang suddenly paused. He lifted the bag reflexively, barely any weight. 2 bottles of water. A realization crept in. Wait a second. Am I overthinking this? The trail looked short. The river seemed close. But the 3 of them ended up walking for a full 40 minutes. Wow, this is a real 5-star scenic spot. Qin Yuchu ran to the river, arms spread wide, dramatically inhaling the fresh air. Even Shen Qingluan's expression softened, a genuine sense of serenity washing over her. The view was stunning. Lush mountains, flowing water, birdsong, fragrant blooms. After so long in a city of concrete and steel, her spirit felt renewed. She tilted her head back slightly, soaking in nature. Careful! Fu Hang's sudden shout cut through the moment. Shen Qingluan looked up just in time to see Qin Yuchu deftly climb atop a giant rock by the riverbank. Yuchu, what are you doing? She cried out, alarmed. That boulder had nothing behind it but open water. Qingluan Jia, the angle from up here is perfect. The pictures will be amazing. Come on, let's take one together. Qin Yuchu beamed and waved her over. That's too dangerous. Get down right now. Shen Qingluan rushed forward but stopped a few steps away. I'm already up here. Would be a waste not to snap a shot. It's really beautiful here. I'll pass. I'll take one of you instead. Just me? That's boring. Fu Hang, come up here. Let's take one together. Me? Fu Hang blinked. Shen Qingluan's expression instantly turned weird. A group photo? She and Fu Hang had never taken a photo together. A good flirt never takes selfies with the backup guy. You should go. Just hurry and get her down, Shen Qingluan murmured. Fu Hang exhaled, memories of Qin Yuchu's trail of snacks playing through his mind. He set his backpack down, then quickly climbed up onto the boulder. Come a bit closer. Yes, stand here. Qin Yuchu beamed as she pulled Fu Heng toward the center of the boulder, naturally hooking her arm through his. Boulder was a generous term. There wasn't much space to stand, so the two of them were standing very close together. Don't move, Fu Heng muttered quietly. He tried to lean away, but there was no room to shift in such a cramped spot. If I fall, would you catch me? Qin Yuchu tilted her head, half resting it on Fu Heng's shoulder. Seriously, stop moving. Fu Heng's heart started racing. Worried she'll get jealous? Qin Yuchu whispered with a faint smile, her voice barely audible. Fu Heng didn't respond. He forced a smile for Shen Qingluan, who was trying to find the right angle with her phone. But as the two on the boulder struck a picture-perfect pose, seemingly lost in whispered conversation, Shen Qingluan's trembling finger hesitated over the shutter button. A strange thought suddenly flashed through her mind. They looked perfect together, but it stung. It felt wrong. All set, Qingluan? Fu Heng called. Hang on, I'll take a few more. Shen Qingluan snapped back to reality and hurriedly snapped several shots. This is why I had Fu Heng go up there in the first place, just to get this photo. As soon as she gave them the okay gesture, Fu Heng jumped down from the boulder. His wrist felt cold where Qin Yuchu had held it, while his shoulder still held the warmth of her touch. It was all very real. He turned around and hesitated for a moment, then reached up toward her. The rock was only about a meter high, easy enough to climb up, but a bit risky for a girl to jump down without help. After posing so intimately for the photo, offering a hand down felt like the natural thing to do. Qin Yuchu lowered her head, silently looking at Fu Heng for 3 seconds. Then a mischievous glint flickered in her eyes. She's up to something, Fu Heng thought grimly. Sure enough, the next second, Qin Yuchu leaned forward and toppled straight toward him. Stepping back slightly and grounding his stance, Fu Heng reacted swiftly, his eyes sharp, movements smooth. He caught her firmly in his arms. A full-on princess carry. He looked down awkwardly, right into Qin Yuchu's wide, blinking eyes. Yuchu. Shen Qingluan gasped and ran over. I'm fine, just slipped. Thank goodness Fu Heng was here, Qin Yuchu said breathlessly, dramatically turning to cling tightly to Fu Heng's neck. You can get down now, Fu Heng whispered. He could already feel the shift in Shen Qingluan's mood. A dip in favor, unmistakable. Oh, sorry. Qin Yuchu lowered her head shyly, but made no move to let go. Only when Fu Heng gently lowered her to the ground did she finally straighten up. That was really dangerous, Yuchu. Don't do that again, Shen Qingluan scolded as she helped her up. Keep playing cute. You'll regret it, she thought darkly. Just as Fu Heng had reached up, Shen Qingluan had another flash of inspiration and quickly raised her phone again. She had planned to capture a sweet hand-holding moment. Who could have guessed she'd end up with a dramatic embrace? The shot of them tightly in each other's arms had been perfectly captured. It's fine, it was just a slip. I grew up in the mountains, remember? Qin Yuchu grabbed her backpack off the ground like nothing had happened and took the lead again. But instead of heading back the way they came, she started walking upstream along the river. Shen Qingluan followed absent-mindedly, still replaying the two photos in her mind. Fu Heng, meanwhile, acted even more shameless. He picked up his hiking pack and, under the guise of wiping his nose, took a deep breath. This was the closest he'd ever been to a girl. If it weren't for the client being nearby, his long-practiced professional restraint might have snapped. She's light, really is 91 pounds, but so soft. Doesn't feel like 91 at all. The trio picked up their pace, but continued stopping here and there. The sun had shifted from overhead, shadows from the mountains slowly lengthening. Fu Heng, do you have any snacks left? Qin Yuchu turned back, giving him an innocent look. It's all gone from the supply pack, Fu Heng replied, raising the last water bottle in his hand. He'd been saving it for himself, but his inner simp instincts reminded him. The last bottle of water should never be drunk by the guy. Really? I finished everything in my bag back in the car. Qingluan, do you have anything? I didn't bring food. Hang in there. We'll eat once we get to camp. Shen Qingluan leaned against a tree, panting as she looked at the rocky riverbank. The scenery was beautiful, but the hike was exhausting. How do those two still have so much energy? She did yoga twice a week, and she was still gasping. Especially Fu Heng, carrying that huge pack and not even sweating. Then let's hurry up and get to the campsite. Which way is it? Qin Yuchu took a deep breath and straightened up. Silence. Why are you looking at me like that? Which way is camp? She asked, blinking innocently. You don't know. Fu Heng was the first to speak. Why would I? It's my first time at Shinfeng Mountain, Qin Yuchu said, totally guilt-free. But you've been leading the way the whole time, Fu Heng said, utterly exasperated. Well, you guys never corrected me, so I figured this was the way. She blinked again, big eyes full of false innocence. What time are we supposed to reach camp? Fu Heng turned to Shen Qingluan, who looked stunned. 3 p.m. An hour to set up and get dinner ready. Shen Qingluan had planned the whole trip, so she knew the schedule, but her voice trailed off. It was already almost 3, and there was no sign of camp. Fu Heng quickly pulled out his phone. No signal. You guys don't know the way either, do you? Qin Yuchu asked, a little sheepishly. I only know the main trail, Shen Qingluan admitted. The plan she'd prepared had detailed maps, but that was for the main path. And now, where's the main path? No signal. Fu Heng glanced around, frustrated. He had been here once before, but just as a tourist, following a guided group. And he hadn't even made it to the top. Shen Qingluan pulled out her own phone, alarmed. Sure enough, no signal. If we don't have service, that means we've strayed way off course. Qin Yuchu murmured. The three of them stood in silence, looking around in confusion. Qianfeng Mountain wasn't named after a single peak. It was called that because it had about 1,000 peaks. And right now, they were stuck somewhere in a valley between two of those peaks. After passing through who knows how many already. What now? Shen Qingluan finally looked worried, instinctively turning to Fu Heng. Getting lost in the mountains wasn't the worst thing that could happen, but it wasn't great either. Don't panic. It's a 5A rated tourist site, and we haven't been walking that fast. We can't be too far off. The signal might just be blocked by the mountains. Let's backtrack a bit. We might get service again. Plus, this is an official group hike. You're a department head, and she's the CEO's assistant. If we really go missing, people will notice fast and send help. Fu Heng sighed, setting down his pack and trying to calm them down. It took us almost 6 hours to get here. Can we even walk back now? I'm hungry. Qin Yuchu didn't seem comforted, or perhaps she was completely oblivious to the gravity of the situation. And whose fault is that? Fu Heng wanted to snap, to grumble a bit, but the memory of how she felt, all 91 gene of her, made him just twitch his lips, unable to utter a word. To be fair, he'd taken things for granted, subconsciously assuming there'd be no issues following this prodigy. Just how ridiculously capable had this prodigy been before all this? Yochu's right. We're out of supplies, and we can't walk back. Besides, do either of you remember the way we came? Shen Qingluan grew alarmed again. She had absolutely no sense of direction. She'd get lost even in Hancheng, let alone out here in the mountains. I don't remember. Qin Yuchu shook her head earnestly. I have a general idea of the direction of the path. Fu Heng looked back the way they'd come. Okay, general was definitely the operative word. They had taken small trails on the way in, and out here in the mountains, every little path looked pretty much the same. Then let's hurry back. Shen Qingluan stood up, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. The sun sets early in the mountains. It'll be dark soon. What if we can't find a main road by then? Qin Yuchu's eyes suddenly reddened, tears welling up. Hearing this, Shen Qingluan completely panicked. This place, if it got dark. She looked at Fu Heng in desperation, instinctively leaning closer to him. Don't worry, it's not that serious. If it really gets dark, don't we have a tent? We came camping anyway, so it's the same whether we're at the campsite or not. If they realize we haven't returned, they'll call a search and rescue team. Fu Heng comforted Shen Qingluan while looking up at Qin Yuchu. Qin Yuchu just stood there quietly, her long lashes fluttering as she gazed at him. But her gaze, even though it was tear-filled, why couldn't he see a trace of worry in it? I'm hungry, Qin Yuchu said pitifully, repeating the phrase she'd uttered most often that day. You aren't actually some kind of monster, are you? A Tao Tai? Pixiao? Baxiao? Fu Heng grumbled internally. But he had a hunch about why Qin Yuchu had been pigging out earlier, so he couldn't bring himself to complain now. That's right. Are we going to starve to death? Shen Qingluan's mood was once again swayed by Qin Yuchu, a natural reaction for someone feeling helpless. Relax, didn't we just pass a river? There are fish in that river. I'll go catch some for you. Shen Qingluan's expression eased at his words. Indeed, not long ago, they had passed a river, much wider than the first one they'd seen. It also had a large riverbank, and Qin Yuchu had even clamored to go down and splash in water, but the other two had stopped her. You can catch fish? Qin Yuchu's eyes lit up, shining like crystals amidst her tear-streaked face. You won't starve, Fu Heng said, a bit exasperated. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was very off about today. The three of them started back, and, after walking for about half an hour, they saw the riverbank. However, just as Qin Yuchu had predicted, night fell early in the mountains. It was autumn now, and though it wasn't even 4 in the afternoon, the sky was already beginning to darken. The prodigy's judgment in this regard was still exceptionally accurate. Speaking of which, isn't this geographical knowledge? Then why did you get us lost? You go catch fish, Qingluan, and I will gather some firewood. After putting down her bag on the riverbank, Qin Yuchu suddenly seemed re-energized. No need. You two just wait here peacefully. Fu Heng also put down his bag and began rummaging through the various pockets of his hiking backpack. After a moment, he pulled out a sewing kit, not the household kind. The needles were large, and the thread was thick. It was the type that came with portable travel tents for emergency repairs if the tent got torn by something sharp in the wild. How can that be okay? We're in a wilderness survival situation now. Everyone needs to contribute to the team. Shen Qingluan had just sat down when Qin Yuchu pulled her up again. Shen Qingluan felt aggrieved. She really was exhausted. Don't cause more trouble. Just sit quietly. Qingluan is tired. And aren't you hungry too? If you're hungry, don't move around. Fu Heng met Shen Qingluan's pleading gaze and quickly stopped them. Shen Qingluan was truly unnerved at this point. Before they got lost, even though the hiking was tiring, they were in a scenic area, on a leisure trip. Now that they were lost, Qin Yuchu's wilderness survival remark had dramatically escalated the perceived severity of their situation. At this moment, Fu Heng was her sole pillar of support. Go off separately from him? With Qin Yuchu? What, they got lost again? Fine. Qin Yuchu pouted, about to say more, but Fu Heng's warning glance silenced her. Why is he walking further and further away? Shen Qingluan watched Fu Heng recede into the distance, her expression uneasy. You don't actually think fish will just be there wherever there's water, do you? Shen Qingluan fell silent. Qin Yuchu pulled a backpack over, rested her head gently on it, and tilted her head, also watching his retreating figure. It smells like him. Fu Heng walked on, stopping occasionally. There were indeed fish in the water, and quite a few of them. The reason he'd walked so far was because he knew that two women couldn't see how he was actually going to catch the fish. At a sufficient distance, Fu Heng squatted by the water's edge, using his body to block their line of sight. He clasped the steel needle in his palm, and with a flick of his wrist, formed a very, very effeminate orchid finger gesture. The next moment, the steel needle left his hand, shot into the water, and accurately pierced a fish's head. Grandmaster Combat Arts, Falling Leaf, Flying Needle. That's right. This Grandmaster wasn't some honorary title. He was a Grandmaster in the truest sense of the word. This was also why those 5 thugs still had no idea why they'd suddenly gone flying. And this was why Fu Heng was so obsessed with performance evaluations and hidden tasks. Did they really think the system was just about handing out money? Slowly pulling back the hemp line, Fu Heng retrieved the steel needle, targeted another fish, and once again formed the orchid finger. The skill was potent, no doubt, but its unique activation gesture made Fu Heng cringe internally. He was a bona fide grandmaster, all right, but perhaps not an entirely conventional one. He actually caught some? How'd he do it? Shen Qingluan, who had been watching Fu Heng intently, suddenly stood up in disbelief. She had only seen him squatting there for a while, though it was a rather long while. But when he stood up, he was already holding a string of fish. Qin Yuchu smiled faintly. Nothing this man did would surprise her anymore. Was there a fish market over there? Qin Yuchu teased when she saw Fu Heng return, because the fish in his hand were even cleaned, belly slit, guts removed. Yeah, I found a supermarket, Fu Heng retorted, pursing his lips as he slung his backpack onto one shoulder. So, shall we go get firewood then? Qin Yuchu patted her bottom and stood up. Let's head over there first. If we're going to start a fire, we need to be away from the mountainside. Let's go to the riverbank. Fu Heng reached out to help Shen Qingluan. She instinctively raised her hand, but then suddenly caught a strong fishy smell, her gaze involuntarily falling on the fish strung on the hemp rope in Fu Heng's hand. Sorry, the smell is a bit strong. Fu Heng, quick to notice, apologized and took a couple of steps back. Freshly killed fish have a potent smell, and people not used to it can indeed be quite sensitive. Give them to me. Wow, they look delicious. Qin Yuchu snatched the fish and skipped off towards the riverbank. Shen Qingluan's eyes flickered. She knew she'd lost her composure just now. That look of disdain hadn't been hidden at all. Let's go. Fu Heng, however, directly picked up Shen Qingluan's backpack. A qualified simp wouldn't possibly care about such details, much less show it. You still have water in your bag? Why is it so heavy? Fu Heng was slightly surprised as he took the backpack. It's toner, Shen Qingluan mumbled, her gaze evasive as she looked down. So heavy. You should have given it to me sooner, Fu Heng said, ignoring her answer, a hint of reprimand in his voice. What kind of people are these? coming out hiking and camping, one bag full of snacks, all eaten before even starting up the mountain, and the other one actually brings toner? Let me guess. A big bag like this must also have foundation, primer, face masks, sunscreen. You didn't actually lug a whole bag of cosmetics up the mountain, did you? The stream over there is very clear. It's a good spot for you to wash your face. Go on. Fu Hang stayed close by Shen Qingluan's side. A dazed look flickered in Shen Qingluan's eyes as she stared blankly at the back in front of her. Perhaps it was due to the unusual circumstances, but in that instant, she gained a new appreciation for this man's thoughtfulness. She knew this thoughtfulness had always been there. It was just that she had deliberately ignored it before, or perhaps had taken it for granted. It was like the old saying, even a piece of wood, if you polished it for 6 years, would develop a patina of affection. Fu Hang found a suitable spot to build a fire, set their things down, and went back into the woods. Shen Qingluan had initially intended to listen to Fu Hang and wash her face to relax, wondering if his reminder meant she already looked a mess. But when she saw Qin Yuchu squatting by the water, carefully cleaning the fish, Shen Qingluan, for some unknown reason, took out her compact mirror to check her makeup. She abandoned the idea of washing her face and just wiped it lightly with a wet wipe. Fu Hang returned quickly, carrying a bundle of dry firewood. He glanced at the sky and disappeared into the woods again. The sun was no longer visible in the sky. Qin Yuchu's assessment had been correct. They would have to spend the night here. Traveling on unfamiliar mountain paths at night was very dangerous. If it were just him, it would be fine, but with 2 young women in tow, Fu Hang wasn't confident. What surprised Fu Hang, however, was that when he returned again, a campfire was already blazing on the riverbank. You lit this? Fu Hang was genuinely surprised. Starting a fire in the wild wasn't a simple task, especially without any accelerant. I might not be good at grilling fish, but starting a fire? I've been in charge of that at home since I was 6. Qin Yuchu said, her head lowered, as she skillfully skewered the fish one by one with suitable sticks. Will this do? I really don't know how to grill fish. Before Fu Hang could answer, Qin Yuchu held up the skewered fish. Excellent. Fu Hang gave her a deep look, then turned his head away to hide the emotions in his heart. Without any seasoning, will it be edible? Shen Qingluan, having rested for a short while, finally felt a bit calmer. Don't worry, leave it to me. Fu Hang flashed a confident smile. Grandmaster-level culinary skills. It was just grilling fish. There were ways to grill with seasoning and ways to grill without. He had even once thought that if he ever truly hit rock bottom or lost his job, he could probably make a decent living with these cooking skills. It's just that yacht parties and nights of debauchery would probably be out of the question. Before long, the distinctive aroma of grilled fish wafted over the riverbank. Qin Yuchu, as if untrusting of Fu Hang's skills, remained squatting by the campfire, her eyes fixed unblinkingly on the sizzling fish. Shen Qingluan had wanted to go over and help too, but after seeing the thick smoke billowing out, she hesitated for a moment and gave up the idea. It smells amazing. I didn't expect you to have this skill. Qin Yuchu praised him sincerely. These 2 are ready. Want to try? Since Qin Yuchu was closer, Fu Hang casually handed the first fish to her, then turned and gave the second one to Shen Qingluan. This gesture made Shen Qingluan feel another pang of awkwardness. She was the future CEO. The future CEO. Shen Qingluan kept reminding herself inwardly. Wow, this is delicious. Fu Hang, you're amazing. I think it's even better than what chefs at restaurants make. Don't you think so, Yuchu? Shen Qingluan's eyes lit up the moment she carefully took a bite. Perhaps she was truly hungry. The unseasoned grilled fish lacked the saucy flavors of a barbecue joint, but possessed a unique, fresh aroma. I don't know. This is my first time eating grilled fish, but it tastes really good. Qin Yuchu replied without turning around, her gaze fixed on the trickling stream nearby. Her words made Fu Hang's hand tremble slightly. First time eating grilled fish. She probably didn't just mean this kind of outdoor barbecue. Fu Hang had mastered the rhythm of grilling the fish. Just as the 2 finished one, a newly cooked one would be ready. Shen Qingluan stopped eating after her 3rd fish. It tasted good, but became a bit much after a while, and besides, she always ate sparingly to maintain her figure. Qin Yuchu, on the other hand, ate one after another, her small frame like a bottomless pit. Shen Qingluan watched her with a complicated expression. Does she really not gain weight? Might as well chew up and swallow the bones too. At this thought, she suddenly froze, looking down at the fish bone she had left. She had only eaten the middle section of the fish, avoiding the head, tail, and the parts near the skewer, fearing they weren't hygienic. Qin Yuchu, in contrast, had indeed eaten almost everything down to the bones. Looking at what lay by her feet, it was a complete fish skeleton, not a speck of meat left. She turned her head to sneak a glance at Fu Hang and found he ate similarly to her, though Qin Yuchu's leavings were even cleaner. Poor girl, Shen Qingluan sneered inwardly. Qingluan, have some water to rinse your mouth. Fu Hang handed over the last bottle of water, having already twisted off the cap. Shen Qingluan naturally took it and was about to bring it to her lips when she suddenly realized it was the last bottle. She slowly raised it higher, not drinking directly from the mouth of the bottle, but pouring a little into her mouth from a distance. Her hand wasn't steady, and she accidentally spilled some. It's the last bottle. We should conserve it. Yuchu, you have some too. Shen Qingluan put the bottle down, gave Fu Hang a gentle look, and then called out to Qin Yuchu. You drink it. This is fine for me. Qin Yuchu pointed to the stream in front of her, cupped her hands, scooped up some water, first rinsed the smudges from around her mouth, and then took a small sip. Her expression was relaxed and content. How can you drink untreated water? Shen Qingluan instinctively tried to stop her. Compared to dehydration, a few microbes and bacteria are nothing. I used to drink it often as a child. It's all natural, no pollution, Qin Yuchu said, turning her head with an open-minded smile. But drinking a little occasionally is fine. If worse comes to worst, we can take a couple of antibiotics after we get down the mountain. Fu Hang also smiled. He capped the bottle and placed it directly beside Shen Qingluan, clearly not intending to drink from this last bottle either. Shen Qingluan held the water bottle, staring blankly at the ground, lost in thought. A strange noise nearby made her turn her head unconsciously, only to see Fu Hang had already opened his hiking backpack and was setting up a tent. What are you doing? Shen Qingluan asked, startled. It's getting dark. There's no lighting in the mountains, and going downhill at this time would be very dangerous, Fu Hang explained. But we're camping right here. Shen Qingluan stood up anxiously. Although this was a riverbank, it wasn't far from the forest, and an air of unknown danger permeated the surroundings. We didn't reach the designated spot on time. They should have realized by now, and might have already sent a search party for us. It's better to wait here than to wander aimlessly in the mountains. At least the visibility is relatively good here. If we set up the tent and light the campfire, we'll be visible from far away. Qin Yuchu finished washing her hands and skipped over to help, showing no fear or unease about being stranded in the wild. Shen Qingluan fell silent. Qin Yuchu made a good point, one she couldn't argue with. All she could do was refresh her phone again and again, hoping to catch a signal and call for help. The tent was a simple, portable kind, as easy to set up as a folding umbrella. Fu Hang's job was to clear the riverside of uneven stones and secure the tent. Watching the two of them busy at work, Shen Qingluan had the urge to help several times, but in the end, she didn't know what she could even do. At that moment, she felt completely useless. She couldn't help but think back to the two secret photos she'd taken, especially the one where he carried Qin Yuchu in his arms like a princess. She had just snuck another look at it. Strong arms, a soft body, an expression of surprise that somehow looked strangely harmonious. What if she were the one being held like that? Yuchu, tell me more about your CEO. I'm dying of curiosity. The words slipped out as Qingluan forced a gossipy grin onto her face. Qin Yuchu's gaze toward Fu Hang was becoming more and more blatant. He tried to avoid it, but it still made Shen Qingluan uncomfortable. The CEO? Qin Yuchu raised an eyebrow and glanced at her suspiciously. Yeah, I'm just so curious about our new boss. Snap! A branch cracked loudly. Fu Hang had just broken one of the sticks meant to secure the tent. He's not conventionally handsome, but still very attractive, Qin Yuchu said casually, sneaking a glance at Fu Hang as she paused her work and sat down, her eyes dreamy, like she was reminiscing. He's got a great smile, but even when he's angry, he still looks good. He's not bulky, but he's solid. You feel really safe when he holds you. He's not the gentle type. He flies off the handle a lot, but he's incredibly considerate, thoughtful in ways you wouldn't expect. He's someone you can trust with everything. And he's mysterious. I know he works multiple jobs, but I still don't really understand what he does. What I do know is he's rich. Qin Yuchu tilted her head, gazing into the lush distance with an expression of pure, undisguised happiness. Shen Qingluan had to admit she was jealous. In her mind, she sketched out the image Qin Yuchu was painting and realized that man matched her dream guy. He was exactly the kind of person she had spent so much time and effort improving herself for, dieting, exercising, dressing up meticulously. All of it was to prepare herself for a man like that. Wow, Yuchu, you're so lucky. He must treat you so well, Qingluan said, glancing at Fu Hang with a hint of envy. Mem, he really does. He gave me a job, warmth, paid off my debts, helped solve my problems, and even got me a house. Oh, he didn't buy me a car, but I guess that's because I don't have a license yet. I should probably go get one. Qin Yuchu said it all with the carefree tone of someone genuinely clueless about how over-the-top she sounded. Fu Hang stumbled, almost tripping over himself. Something fell from his pocket. It was a car registration. He quickly snatched it up and shoved it back in, looking guilty. Qingluan stared blankly. He bought her a house? Her eyes flicked back to Fu Hang. She caught his flustered reaction and sneered inwardly. See that? That's the difference. Suddenly, all the gifts Fu Hang had given her felt like cheap trinkets. A CEO buying a house? It had to be a 300-square-meter luxury villa at least. Why is this girl so lucky? Can you tell me how you met? I'm dying of envy. It was during the darkest, most hopeless time of my life. Qin Yuchu suddenly tilted her head back dramatically and stretched her arms wide toward the sky. He descended into my life like a god, riding on rainbow clouds, shining with blinding light. Boom! He smashed in my world like a force of nature and completely took over. You two are so in love, Qingluan said, her feelings a complicated knot. She didn't even want to look at Fu Hang anymore. For him, I'd give everything, Qin Yuchu said, lowering her arms and turning to look at Shen Qingluan, eyes blazing with a heat and devotion Qingluan had never seen before. I really envy you, Qingluan murmured dazed. She had only meant to steer the conversation in a way that would make Fu Hang realize where he stood, that Qin Yuchu was just toying with him, that she had a man, a CEO. But the look in Yuchu's eyes, it burned. Once, she too had dreamed of a love so powerful it made you throw caution to the wind. But over time, with each small, pathetic man she encountered, she became more adept at manipulation. She began to enjoy the push and pull, the feeling of having men wrapped around her finger. She lost herself in it. Why had she started doing this in the first place? Hesitantly, she glanced at Fu Hang. What if the man she'd walked through life with was actually him? Maybe it was the isolation of being stuck in the mountains, but Shen Qingluan was unusually fragile and sensitive today. Everything she had once ignored surged up from her memory. For the first time, she looked at Fu Hang seriously. For the first time, she considered him as someone who might be part of her future. And then, that blurry image of her dream man began to merge with the very real figure of Fu Hang. Aside from his background, there was nothing wrong with him. In that mental image, standing quietly next to him, was a woman, Qin Yuchu. The photo she had hidden in her phone suddenly snapped into sharp focus, replacing her fantasy. A strange kind of jealousy crept in her chest. Not like someone had stolen a pair of slippers from her front door, but more like her favorite designer bag had been bought by someone else, right before her eyes. Fu Hang was focused on tying the tent ropes. He'd already tried 3 times and still couldn't get them right. He heard every word Yuchu had said. His heart was pounding. For him, I'd give everything. That had to be fake, right? She was just showing off for Shen Qingluan, wasn't she? You saw how I treat Qingluan. There's no way you actually feel that way. This had to be one of your tricks. Another one of your seductive games. I've seen this before. Fu Hang's fingers trembled slightly. He was a mess inside. Today's payment of 100,000 has been deposited. Overtime detected. Your bonus will be paid alongside tomorrow's wages. Current affection rating from target Shen Qingluan, 85. 21%. Please keep up the good work. Snap. Another rope broke in his hands. Fu Hang's head shot up, stunned. He had started work early this morning, so yeah, it should be the end of his shift by now. But wait, 85. 21%. Wasn't it only 71? 12% yesterday. What did I even do today? He looked up in shock, only to meet Shen Qingluan's gaze. Her eyes were full of complexity, tinged with feeling, softened by warmth, riddled with contradiction. Impossible to interpret, impossible to read. Damn, just one look, and Fu Hang knew he was in trouble. Shen Qingluan was slipping, emotionally unstable, falling into confusion. Was she wavering? Fu Hang, why don't you take a break? Qingluan said softly. There was a tenderness in her voice that struck him as oddly sincere and unsettling. I'm almost done, Fu Hang mumbled, hurriedly ducking his head. He glanced nervously at Qin Yuchu. Were her words laced with some kind of mental attack? How could they have such a devastating effect? Weren't they supposed to provoke Shen Qingluan, remind her to stick to her only marry rich mantra? Why was it backfiring this badly? It made no sense. Since we're staying overnight, I'll go gather more firewood, Qin Yuchu said breezily, standing up like nothing had happened and heading toward the woods. I'll go. Fu Hang jumped up and ran after her. He couldn't be left alone with Shen Qingluan right now. 85. 21%. He was basically running on fumes. What if one wrong move pushed her over the edge? What if she got defeated and the game announced its failure to the entire server? Qingluan, watch the camp. We'll bring back extra this time. Qin Yuchu called from ahead. Huh. Shen Qingluan blinked, startled, and looked around. The area was open, with a fire still burning. Not exactly dangerous at the moment. But why do they have to go together? She glared at their retreating figures, biting her lip in frustration. You already have a CEO who treats you like a goddess. Why the hell are you still flirting with my Fu Hang? The sun had dipped below the horizon. The stars and moon yet to make their appearance, and the sky had turned completely dark. The late autumn night wind whistled through the mountain ravines, and the riverbank, lit by the flickering campfire, was steeped in an unnatural silence, an eerie, unsettling stillness. Fu Hang had gone to catch more fish, just in case, and was now idly roasting them one by one. Qin Yuchu, looking like a high schooler on a picnic, lay peacefully by the campfire, her bright eyes serene as she gazed up at the inky sky, waiting for the stars to burst forth. Shen Qingluan had become very quiet. For some time now, she'd been staring at the dancing flames with an unfocused gaze, not uttering a single word. Fu Hang, on the other hand, was a nervous wreck. He was meticulously replaying the day's events in his mind, desperately trying to recall every single thing he'd done. What did I screw up? What exactly did I do wrong? What was the mistake? Why did Shen Qingluan suddenly break down? Weren't you supposed to be unyielding, impervious to all poisons? Where's your protective, true chi? Your Sea King's training? Your 1,000-year green tea act? Your golden body? 85, 21%. That's a very, very dangerous threshold, especially out here in the remote wilderness. Helpless, alone, in an unfamiliar place. Environment and time can truly mess with one's state of mind and emotions. I don't have favorable timing, location, or human relations. How am I supposed to win this fight? Wait, human relations? Fu Hang's gaze shifted to Qin Yuchu, who was lying on her back. Damn, how can she look so magnificent even when she's lying down? Ahem. Human relations. Yes, let's talk about human relations. Qin Yuchu, training an army for 1,000 days to use them in a single moment. It's finally time for you to prove your worth. Risk hedging. Human intervention. Yuchu wants some more to eat. Fu Hang suddenly spoke, his tone less a question and more a hesitant murmur, laced with faint timidity and nervousness. Qin Yuchu tilted her head, her face a picture of suspicion. To be precise, this was the first time Fu Hang had proactively spoken to her all day. Qin Yuchu instinctively flicked her gaze towards Shen Qingluan and saw her body tense slightly. Although Shen Qingluan didn't look over, Qin Yuchu could clearly feel her attention shift their way. What on earth was Fu Hang up to? Didn't you say these were emergency rations? Qin Yuchu turned on her side, propping herself up on an elbow, and raised an eyebrow lazily. It's fine. If you want to eat, I can go catch more. Fu Hang's evasive gaze quickly darted away, flitting nervously over the campfire. Damn it. It's supposed to be a loose-fitting tracksuit. Why is there so much? Jiggle? But what if I really get fat, and the CEO doesn't want me anymore? Qin Yuchu suddenly sat up, crossing her legs, and looked at Fu Hang seriously. I'd still want you. Fu Hang almost blurted out. How could you possibly get fat? Fu Hang twisted his stiff shoulders, delivering a perfect score answer. It smells so good. Give me one. Shen Qingluan's voice sounded beside him. She, who had been leaning against the tent to shield herself from the wind, now sat down next to Fu Hang. Very close. So close that her shoulder casually brushed against his as she settled. Qingluan, this one's for you. Fu Hang shivered slightly, though the tremor seemed a bit deliberate. Would I mess up again? Shouldn't you be furious right now? Seething with resentment? Why are you getting all clingy? Thanks. Shen Qingluan took the roasted fish but didn't eat it. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, leaning it close to Fu Hang's shoulder. The night breeze gently rustled, and strands of her silky hair, carrying a faint fragrance, brushed against Fu Hang's neck. Fu Hang's muscles tensed, his mind racing. No way. No way. This can't be. Is she being possessive? Did I actually make a strategic miscalculation? So, are you two actually a couple or not? Qin Yuchu, sitting across the campfire, squinted at them, a playful smirk on her face. Fu Hang shivered again. He hesitated, then turned his head, his evasive eyes looking at Shen Qingluan with a timid expression. That look, 3 parts anticipation, 3 parts trepidation, 3 parts infatuation, and a hint of subtle helplessness. To achieve this look, Fu Hang had practically channeled all his power, using every acting skill he'd ever learned. To appear so natural under such intense mental pressure truly showed how much the profession of a simp could hone a person. No, Shen Qingluan blurted out reflexively. But when her eyes met Fu Hang's, a flicker of struggle crossed her face. "We're just classmates," Fu Hang said, a bright smile on his face as he turned to explain earnestly to Qin Yuchu. The textbook answer. How come I don't have classmates like that? Qin Yuchu pouted, her gaze darting back and forth between them. "Yuchu, you're so outstanding, at school you must have." Shen Qingluan began. "Nowhere near as good as him." Qin Yuchu cut her off, her gaze becoming even more aggressive. "Not even the CEO can compare." Shen Qingluan's mind churned. "What on earth do you mean? Are you hitting on him right in front of me? With the CEO, I'm the one simping for him." Qin Yuchu suddenly leaned forward. Her delicate smile, illuminated by the firelight, looked even more captivating, almost bewitching. Shen Qingluan was instantly silenced. The layers of attack in Qin Yuchu's statement were crystal clear. First strike, she directly exposed Fu Hang and Shen Qingluan's dynamic. What, just classmates? He was clearly her simp, her backup option. Second strike, my other simps aren't as good as him. Compared to them, I've got my eye on him. Shen Qingluan was truly speechless. A woman who could tame the CEO was indeed no simple character. Is she not even trying to hide it? Aren't you afraid I'd tell the CEO what you said? The wind's picking up. Why don't you two rest in the tent for a bit? You must be tired after such a long day. Fu Hang stood up abruptly, pretending to stretch as he moved away from the campfire. His mind was a complete mess. He couldn't decide whether to attack or defend. His tactics were in shambles. He needed some quiet time alone to think about his current predicament and come up with a detailed plan. Tonight was definitely going to be rough. Shen Qingluan was acting strange. Qin Yuchu was even stranger, and this whole Thousand Peaks mountain reeked of weirdness. If he ever came back to Thousand Peaks Mountain in this lifetime, he swore he'd do a handstand and take a dump that just looped in midair. It has been a long day. Let's go rest together." Qin Yuchu patted her butt, stood up, and smiled at Fu Hang. I'm good. I'll keep watch for you guys." Meeting Qin Yuchu's eyes, Fu Hang felt his teeth itch. He instantly understood the meaning behind her smile. "How could that be okay? You're the one who worked the hardest today. If the rescue team doesn't find us, you're all we have to rely on. What would we do if you collapsed from exhaustion?" Qin Yuchu said with a concerned expression, walking around the campfire to grab Fu Hang's arm. "Yuchu's right. You're the one who needs rest the most." Shen Qingluan instinctively took a step forward, looking up at Fu Hang with similar concern, her body naturally positioning itself between him and Qin Yuchu. "I'm really fine, Qingluan. Don't you know me by now? My usual work involves pulling all-nighters. Besides, we're deep in the mountains. Someone needs to watch the fire." The hairs on the back of Fu Hang's neck stood on end. Tired? Physically, not really, but mentally, utterly drained. Rest? How could he rest? There was only one tent. This tent was originally for Shen Qingluan and Qin Yuchu. In Shen Qingluan's plan, Fu Hang was supposed to share a tent with another male colleague from HR who had come alone. That tent had gone up the mountain with the main group. "Fu Hang has a point," Qin Yuchu said thoughtfully, tilting her head and glancing around. "We're deep in the mountains, after all. Never mind snakes or wild animals. What if the campfire accidentally sets the trees ablaze? How about we take turns keeping watch?" Yes, you two go rest first." Fu Hang heaved a long sigh of relief, then looked at Qin Yuchu suspiciously. "Snakes and wild animals? Are there even snakes at this time of year? Wild animals? This is a top-rated scenic area. How far could we have possibly walked? We'd be lucky to see a squirrel, let alone anything bigger. Start a forest fire?" He'd specifically chosen the middle of the riverbank to prevent that. The campfire was at least 80 to 100 meters from the tree line. How strong would the wind have to be to threaten the forest? Is this how a top student thinks? So much for book smarts. Then we. Shen Qingluan, however, was thoroughly spooked by Qin Yuchu's words. She subconsciously edged closer to Fu Hang, almost pressing herself into his arms. Snakes and wild animals? In an instant, Shen Qingluan felt the surrounding darkness teem with danger. Fu Hang opened his mouth, but he didn't know how to explain it to Shen Qingluan, or rather, he wasn't sure if he even should. "All right, I'll take the first watch. You two go rest," Qin Yuchu said with a decisive wave of her hand, winking at Fu Hang. That doesn't seem right, does it?" Shen Qingluan turned her head, looking at Qin Yuchu in surprise. Seriously, aren't you scared at all? Fu Hang seized the opportunity, shooting Qin Yuchu a look over Shen Qingluan's shoulder that conveyed a very precise message. What the hell do you think you're doing? Fu Hang was truly exhausted, carrying luggage, setting up tents, hiking, catching fish. He really needed a rest. Or maybe Sister Qingluan could take the first watch. Qin Yuchu said hesitantly, returning Fu Hang's glare with an almost imperceptible glance of her own. I'm helping you. Fu Hang's eyes nearly popped out of his head as he glared back. Screw you. But, Fu Hang, Shen Qingluan felt even more helpless. Her keep watch? You gotta be kidding. Never mind that she was genuinely terrified. Even if there was no danger, how could she stand guard outside while the two of them were lying in a tent together? Ideally, she and Qin Yuchu would go into the tent, and Fu Hang would keep watch outside. That was the most logical arrangement in Shen Qingluan's mind. Shouldn't a man step up at a time like this? What about a man's sense of duty and responsibility? But Qin Yuchu had already pushed things this far. If Shen Qingluan insisted on her own logic now, it would undoubtedly create a very negative impression on Fu Hang. Damn it, this girl is so malicious. How could I let a girl keep watch while a grown man like me goes to sleep? Fu Hang, seemingly understanding Shen Qingluan's dilemma, waved his hand with a touch of assertiveness, gently nudging her towards the tent. Shen Qingluan let out a long sigh and obediently slipped into the tent. To be honest, she was mentally and physically drained, utterly exhausted from the day. This man, he always seemed to know what she was thinking, what she wanted, and he always met her expectations without delay. Perhaps. Shen Qingluan slowly sat down inside, gently stroking the tent fabric. It was exceptionally tidy. Even though they were on a riverbank, the ground inside was perfectly smooth, without a single bump. Clearly, Fu Hang had put a lot of care into setting it up. With a mix of complicated emotions, Shen Qingluan slowly lay down. Waves of exhaustion washed over her, accompanied by a warmth spreading in her heart. The next moment, her eyes snapped open. Qin Yuchu, why hasn't she come in yet? Sitting up again, she peeked through a gap in the tent flap. Qin Yuchu was sitting nonchalantly by the campfire, undoing her ponytail. She tilted her head back, running her hands through her long hair and lazily massaging her scalp. Under the flickering, dancing firelight, her vibrant, youthful aura was tinged with an indescribable, subtle allure. What on earth are you trying to do? Fu Hang couldn't bring himself to look directly at the scene, fiddling absently with the campfire with a stick in his hand. Aren't you pursuing her? I'm creating an opportunity for you. When people are helpless and scared, their psychological defenses are at their weakest. All you have to do right now is... Don't worry, I'll pretend I didn't hear a thing. Qin Yuchu lowered her hands, letting her hair fall freely, and turned her head to look at Fu Hang with a playful expression. Are you nuts? Fu Hang gripped the stick tightly, fighting the urge to bash her over the head with it. That's exactly what I'm f***ing worried about right now. 85, 21%. If I'm not careful, I'll get the first kill, then there'll be a server-wide announcement, and I'll be out of job. What? You don't want to? Or could it be, you actually want to sleep with me? Qin Yuchu's gaze was hazy, her voice deliberately slow and soft. Fu Hang's anxious heart skipped a beat, his thoughts freezing completely. Damn it, she got me again. Yuchu, why aren't you coming to rest yet? Inside the tent, Shen Qingluan couldn't stand it any longer. She couldn't hear their conversation, but she was all too familiar with the ambiguous atmosphere spreading from the campfire. Didn't I say? I'm taking the first watch, Qin Yuchu replied, looking up with a smile. But Fu Hang said, he's just being considerate of us girls. This is wilderness survival. We can't be picky about such things now. If we don't protect the team's main pillar of support, we might not make it out of these mountains. Right now, Fu Hang is the one who needs to be taken care of the most. Qin Yuchu turned to look at Fu Hang again, her eyes shimmering with endless tenderness and understanding. Her gaze wasn't exactly one of deep love, but it was certainly full of affection. Yuchu is right. Fu Hang, you come rest with me first. Shen Qingluan abandoned her original plan, quickly approached Fu Hang, and pulled him towards the tent. Qin Yuchu, you've really gone too far. Have you no shame? Where's a girl's modesty? Her subtlety? That look you just gave him wasn't just flirting, it was blatant teasing, outright seduction. You like being out in the breeze, huh? Then go ahead and enjoy it. Inside the dimly lit tent, Fu Hang was completely flustered. How? How did things escalate to this? Refuse? That doesn't fit my persona. Just leave? Would the system register that as an auto-resignation? Although 85, 21% was dangerously high, Fu Hang felt he could still salvage the situation. Lie down. Sleep, Shen Qingluan ordered, her tone surprisingly imperious. Oh, looking nervous, his body stiff, Fu Hang carefully lay down at the very edge of the tent, barely daring to breathe. Seeing Fu Hang like this, much of the frustration in Shen Qingluan's heart instantly dissipated. This was the real Fu Hang. Even with such an opportunity, he still maintained the utmost respect for her. In that moment, Shen Qingluan thought of the many men she had encountered in her life. They might have acted like gentlemen, refined, cultured, gentle, considerate, but the possessiveness in their eyes was impossible to hide. Even their accidental touches felt so deliberate. In their eyes, she might be a goddess, but their thoughts and actions were blasphemous, focused on how to pin that goddess beneath them. But this man, it seemed, had never harbored a single indecent thought about her. He even maintained a respectful distance when they spoke. This was a man who truly worshipped her, as if she were a goddess. Hurry, and get some rest. Shen Qingluan's voice suddenly became incredibly gentle. She slowly lay down on the other side of the tent, turning shyly onto her side, presenting Fu Hang with a back that invited endless speculation. The luxurious two-person tent, reserved by the executive, was quite spacious inside. The two of them, each lost in their own thoughts, lay at opposite edges of the tent, aware of each other's breath. Though a considerable distance still separated them, an indescribable, ambiguous feeling slowly began to weave itself into the air between them. Fu Hang, Shen Qingluan's voice was barely a whisper, like an unconscious murmur. Fu Hang's heart pounded wildly. Lady, please just go to sleep. This really isn't the time to be talking. In this place, in this situation, no matter what we talk about, it's bound to stir things up. That's just human nature. It's not what I want, not what you want, and it wouldn't be good for either of us, right? Thank you. The sound of Shen Qingluan turning over came from beside him. Fu Hang's muscles instantly tensed up all over again. Damn it. I fucking knew this would happen. It's just what I ought to do. Fu Hang turned over as well, their eyes meeting. Shen Qingluan didn't speak, just gazed quietly at Fu Hang, her eyes like limpid pools, a hint of spring in their corners. Her exquisite makeup, faintly visible in the dim tent, radiated an endless mix of longing, coyness, bashfulness, and allure. This intoxicating gaze in Fu Hang's eyes, however, was 85, 22%, 85, 23%, 85, 24%, which slapping her across the face stopped this trend that violates core values. Two bizarre options popped into Fu Hang's mind. This deal's gonna close. This deal's gonna fall through. But who could understand Fu Hang's suffering? Whether it succeeded or failed made no difference to him. He was gonna lose his job either way. Or perhaps, just go for it. Fu Hang's gaze fell on Shen Qingluan's delicate lips, painted with number 72 lipstick, looking luscious and utterly delectable. As a first client approved by the system, her own attributes were undeniably top-notch. Since he was going to lose his job anyway, should he just throw caution to the wind, go with the flow, and take her then and there? It would be a way to put a fulfilling end to his career, so to speak. Pouncing on her now would lead to one of two outcomes. Outcome 1. Shen Qingluan flies into a rage, screams for help, and then slaps him. Deal falls through. Unemployed. Outcome 2. Shen Qingluan, overcome by passion, yields to him and gives him a night of ecstasy. Deal closes. Unemployed. Fu Hang's throat bobbed, his gaze growing hazy as well. In special circumstances, a person's rational thinking and psychological defenses are fragile. This wasn't just true for Shen Qingluan. It applied equally to Fu Hang, a man in his virile prime. Damn it, to hell with it all. Lust flared in Fu Hang's heart, desire coursing through him. Licking his lips, he was about to pounce. Next moment, the tent flap was thrown open. Fu Hang suddenly felt an urge to cough up blood, the kind of pent-up frustration you feel when you misfire an ultimate ability or flash straight into a wall in a game. Didn't you freaking say you'd pretend not to hear? You just gonna barge in? I had the mood all set, my skills were charged and ready, eager to launch. And then you pull this? The next instant, Qin Yu Chu, as if no one else was there, lay down in the space deliberately left empty between the two of them. The atmosphere became incredibly awkward. The three people inside the tent simultaneously fell silent. Qin Yu Chu said nothing. Fu Hang didn't know what to say. Shen Qingluan, however, found her emotions in turmoil once more. The mood just moments before had indeed been brewing to a critical point. If Qin Yu Chu hadn't come in, something might have really happened. She felt a little relieved, yet also a little regretful and annoyed. The breathing of all three was steady and even, but the atmosphere enveloping the tent grew increasingly bizarre. Fu Hang stared, trying his best to observe Qin Yochu's profile by the faint firelight seeping in from outside. A pert, delicate nose, a smooth, fine jawline, long, thick eyelashes, and a tender, rosy complexion. Originally, the two in the tent had been lying on their sides, precisely to leave enough space between them. But Qin Yuchu lay flat on her back, directly blocking the space between them. After all, it was a two-person tent. It felt spacious with two people, but with three, it was clearly a tight squeeze. Fu Hang was the first to realize this problem, because he felt the familiar 100-pound softness pressed against him. Fu Hang's eyes shot wide open in an instant, because in his perception within the darkness, the body pressed right against him was not still. She was moving. He instinctively tried to recoil, but he was already pressed against the edge of the tent. Where was there room to move? This movement caused the tent to shake. Yuchu, why did you come in? Shen Qingluan finally broke the silence. After a brief moment of astonishment and panic, she finally registered the current arrangement of the three of them. I couldn't hold out anymore. Sleepy. Qin Yuchu seemed to have forgotten her earlier righteous stance, answering very irresponsibly. Then outside, Shen Qingluan hesitated. She couldn't bring herself to tell Qin Yuchu to go out. They were both girls, after all, and moreover, women connected to the president. It should be fine, right? How about, Sister Qingluan, you go out and keep watch first. Qin Yuchu turned her head, but she turned it towards Fu Hang's side. The words, like hell I will, died on Fu Hang's lips as Qin Yuchu shot him a warning glare. Shen Qingluan fell silent again. Go out alone into the pitch-black wilderness. Just for a little while. It should be fine, right? Shen Qingluan's tone was evasive. Qin Yuchu had previously elevated Fu Hang's rest to a matter of morality and the bigger picture, so she couldn't bring herself to suggest Fu Hang go out now. Let's sleep then. Qin Yuchu smiled, looking into Fu Hang's eyes, her smile full of cunning. How about, I sleep in the middle? Shen Qingluan had been watching them both. Although the tent was dim and she couldn't see them clearly, her intuition told her something was definitely happening over there. Perhaps deliberately, when Qin Yuchu lay down, she had left a bit of distance from her. But this meant Qin Yuchu and Fu Hang were pressed very close together. You're not a couple, so what difference does it make who sleeps in the middle? Fu Hang shouldn't mind, right? Or are you saying you want to sleep next to Fu Hang? Qin Yuchu said nonchalantly. Don't talk nonsense. I was just thinking if the president finds out later, he won't be happy, will he? Shen Qingluan took a deep breath, playing her trump card. He has plenty of women around him. He should be able to understand me. Besides, we're in a survival situation in the wilderness. He should be thanking Fu Hang for taking care of me. Qin Yuchu tilted her head, trying to nudge Fu Hang's head with her forehead, her closely pressed body squirming slightly. Shen Qingluan didn't know about Qin Yuchu's subtle movements, but her words left her speechless. What kind of logic was that? Everyone plays their own game. But he's the president. What are you? I'm going for a smoke. Fu Hang finally couldn't stand the torment anymore. He shot up into a sitting position and practically bolted out of the tent without looking back. Shen Qingluan let out a long sigh of relief, feeling pleased with her own astuteness. Fu Hang always knew how to consider the bigger picture. Sitting back down by the campfire, Fu Hang dangled a cigarette from his lips, but couldn't get his lighter to work. After 3 failed attempts, he helplessly pulled out a burning stick from the fire to light it. Qin Yuchu, is this vixen just messing with me? But by using her, can I really lower Shen Qingluan's affection rating? An affection rating exceeding the safety line is a really, really troublesome thing. Because, short of outright neglecting my duties, it's truly difficult to lower it artificially, unless another carp leaps over the dragon gate in the client's fish pond. Take client number 3, for example. When her rating was at 87%, a rich second-generation heir suddenly appeared, practically parachuting in on a yacht. If it were other clients, Fu Hang was confident he could hedge the risk, using another client to lower Shen Qingluan's affection rating, though the difficulty would still be considerable. But Qin Yuchu, Fu Hang found he couldn't understand this woman at all. She's a siren. No, she's a temptress from hell. But right now, there didn't seem to be any suitable rivals around Shen Qingluan. Inside the tent, after Fu Hang left, Shen Qingluan also sat up. Sister Qingluan, you're not sleeping either? Qin Yuchu shifted her position slightly to the side. Scared. Can't sleep. Shen Qingluan peered intently at Qin Yuchu through the darkness. She suddenly had a strange feeling. This girl, who looked so innocent and harmless, might actually be in a higher league than her. She just couldn't figure out what Qin Yuchu's intentions towards Fu Hang were. Was it purely for fun? Or perhaps a provocation aimed at her? She was the undisputed goddess of the company. She handled all colleagues, male or female, with perfect poise and effortless skill. And this girl, who was top in all her subjects at school, could it be just because of that? She wanted to compete with her for this top spot too? Was she crazy? Shen Qingluan felt frustrated inwardly, but she deeply understood this theory of rivals in the same field clashing. For example, celebrities on the red carpet always try to outshine one another. Wasn't that precisely it? Actually, I can't sleep either. Forget it, let's go out. Maybe the search and rescue team will find us soon. Qin Yuchu suddenly got up and, before Shen Qingluan could react, slipped out of the tent. Shen Qingluan was completely baffled. Didn't you say you couldn't hold out anymore? Shen Qingluan was actually very tired, especially after experiencing such an emotional roller coaster just now. But suddenly thinking of the two people outside, she gritted her teeth, and that subconscious competitiveness within her was activated. It's just a man, isn't it? Did you little brat really think you've got me cornered? When I was charming men, you hadn't even hit puberty yet. Why aren't you two asleep yet? Seeing them both come out one after the other, Fu Hang's brow furrowed. Am I fated to meet my end on this mountain today? Unemployment is bad enough as it is. Can't you two give society a break? Thought you might be bored, so I came to keep you company. Shen Qingluan said, seating herself right next to Fu Hang, just as close as before. Qin Yuchu, however, sat quite far away. She didn't look at either of them, instead gazing at the shimmering surface of the water. The night in the mountains was completely different from the cityscape, especially the sky. With no light pollution, the stars appeared exceptionally brilliant. This magnificent starry sky, reflected in the flowing river, was truly a breathtaking and refreshing sight. Fu Hang quickly stubbed out his cigarette, licking his dry lips, unsure what to say. He didn't dare suggest going back to the tent. Right now, that tent felt like a guillotine to him. Do you still remember the poem you wrote for me in college? Shen Qingluan's gaze flickered towards Qin Yuchu as she began to set the pace. Fu Hang was taken aback. I can write poetry. Fu Hang can write poetry. Qin Yuchu's interest was immediately piqued. Yes, Fu Hang was in the school's poetry society back then. A real literary talent, Shen Qingluan said, a hint of admiration in her eyes. Fu Hang's mind was instantly pulled back into his memories. Back then, he had indeed been young, full of vigor, and brimming with ambition, until he met Shen Qingluan. After graduation, he landed a pretty good job, but his mind wasn't on work at all back then. He was at Shen Qingluan's beck and call, and was fired before his probation period ended. After that, he lost interest in finding another job, living off the inheritance his mother left him, endlessly simping for her. His mindset then was the complete opposite of what it was now. Now, he was focused on building his career, but back then, he dreamed of starting a family before establishing a career. Fu Hang, how about a demonstration? Qin Yuchu urged, eager to see. Shen Qingluan also turned to Fu Hang, her gaze filled with affection, anticipation, and reminiscence. The Sea King's angling ploy, the nostalgia kill. Meeting her gaze, a chill ran down Fu Hang's spine. He keenly picked up on a critical point. Indeed, only on familiar turf could he maneuver with confidence. Welcome to the top lane. Sorry, I don't remember, Fu Hang mumbled, lowering his head in embarrassment. He mentally calculated how many points this would dock him. Sure enough, a flicker of disbelief crossed Shen Qingluan's eyes. The poem you wrote for me. I remember every word. How could you, Fu Hang, forget? Are you even Fu Hang anymore? Then write one on the spot. This mountain, this water, these stars, this moon. Such perfect inspiration. Qin Yuchu's smile was radiant, her voice rising with excitement. Shen Qingluan, still lost in her disappointment, showed no reaction to the suggestion. Aren't you the academic ace? Why don't you write one? Fu Hang prodded the campfire, keeping an eye on Shen Qingluan's reaction out of the corner of his eye. Progress is good. Keep it up. If I write one, will you write one too? Qin Yuchu's enthusiasm grew. You go first. Fu Hang ignored her, already contemplating the force and scope of his next move. The spring breeze and I are both but passers-by. Qin Yuchu turned her head, her gaze drifting towards the mountains. After a long moment, she spoke, her tone calm and slow. It's autumn now, quite fitting, huh? Academic ace. Fu Hang retorted bluntly, looking for fault. And you carry the autumn waters and embrace the river of stars. Qin Yuchu turned back, her gaze calm as she looked at Fu Hang. Fu Hang was silenced. As a Chinese literature major, he naturally understood the meaning between the lines. This girl, Shen Qingluan, also frowned slightly, looking up at Qin Yuchu in surprise. Is she really an academic ace? To come up with that so effortlessly? But what kind of response is this? Your turn, great talent, Qin Yuchu said with a sweet smile. Ding. Temporary quest triggered. Compose a poem inspired by the scenery to please the fair ladies. Reward upon completion. Just as Fu Hang was about to laugh it off and bluff his way through, a system notification suddenly sounded in his mind. What the? Fu Hang was stunned. This was the first time he had ever triggered such a quest. Then, before he could fully process his shock, 2 lines of glittering golden text appeared before his eyes. Drunk, I knew not the sky was in the water. A boat laden with lucid dreams pressed upon the starry river. Wow, you really are a great talent. Qin Yuchu's exaggerated voice snapped him out of his thoughts. Damn it, did I just read that out loud unconsciously? Fu Hang was utterly astounded. The 2 floating lines of text vanished without a trace, and he found himself facing Qin Yuchu, who was looking at him as if he were a deity. Crap! Alarm bells ringing in his head. Fu Hang quickly turned to look at Shen Qingluan, only to meet a pair of equally stunned eyes. In that astonishment, there was also a hint of shock, a touch of joy, and a trace of enchantment. System, you've doomed me. Ding. Quest completed. Reward. Lyrics, composition, and corresponding singing skills for the parallel world hit song reserved. Fuck, I took such a huge risk, and you just give me a song? Without time for further thought, Fu Hang shot to his feet just as emotions began to well up in Shen Qingluan's eyes. This stunt, I hope it doesn't push her affection past 90%. What do I do? Qingluan, listen to me explain. I plagiarized this poem. Damn it all. This is no time for showing off. System, why are you doing this to me? Write the song. The system gave me a song. The system never does anything without reason. This song must have a deeper meaning. Calming himself, Fu Hang quickly tried to recall the song that had suddenly appeared in his mind. What the hell? What kind of song is this? With such malicious intent? If I sing this song, I probably won't even have to wait for tomorrow's settlement. Fu Hang, you're amazing. Shen Qingluan also stood up, her eyes sparkling like stars. Fu Hang averted his gaze, looking pleadingly at Qin Yuchu. Now's your cue. Aren't you going to intervene? What do I keep you around for? However, Qin Yuchu didn't look at him at all, merely staring entranced at the reflection of the starry sky on the river surface. Found them. Over there. A shout came from the distance, followed by several bright flashlight beams. The rescue team. Fu Hang's eyes instantly welled up with tears. You're finally here. The motherland truly doesn't let one down. When in trouble, these camouflage uniforms are always the most reliable support. A large group of people rushed over from the distance. Figures in camouflage with fluorescent vests, scenic area staff, and Yuanbo Corporation employees. Fu Hang also spotted Lawyer Zhang and Vice President Su among them. Unsure if this sudden turn of events had affected Shen Qingluan's mood, Fu Hang eagerly went to meet the newcomers. A scenic area staff member sharply reprimanded Fu Hang as soon as they met. Camping in a scenic area required prior registration and approval, and only in designated zones. At first, they thought someone was genuinely lost or injured, but when he saw the group camping perfectly fine by the river, even with a campfire going. This is a 5A grade forest reserve. One careless mistake, and you could all end up serving a long prison sentence. Fu Hang was very sincere, logically explaining the cause and effect, and repeatedly expressing his thanks and apologies. After confirming no one was in danger, Lawyer Zhang promptly took over the negotiations. Su Chang'e shot Shen Qingluan a fierce glare before standing beside Lawyer Zhang without a word. Fu Hang had no part in what followed. After such an ordeal, camping was, of course, out of the question. Led by the search and rescue team, the group descended the mountain in the dark. They hadn't actually gone very far. It had taken them several hours to get there, but with the rescue team leading, they were back on the main path in just an hour. It was just bad luck, really. That particular mountain hollow happened to have no signal coverage. On the way back, Shen Qingluan remained silent. As the person in charge of the event, yet having gotten lost in the mountains herself, she bore an undeniable responsibility. However, among the crowd, Fu Hang glanced at her several times and saw something in her eyes that made his heart pound with terror. So much so that Fu Hang thoughtfully considerate of her feelings, didn't dare speak to her the entire way. Qin Yuchu, on the other hand, acted as if nothing had happened the whole way, seemingly taking everything around her for granted. Yet, it was precisely this attitude that even led Su Changhe to constantly shower her with concern on the way down the mountain. At the scenic area entrance, Su Changhe, citing Qin Yuchu's fright, had Shen Qingluan accompany her back first. The entire company had come for the camping trip. Only a small fraction had participated in the search. The rest, naturally, were still at the campsite, proceeding with the team-building activities as planned. As the event organizer, Shen Qingluan had no reason to leave at this time. Even if she had to stay overnight at the scenic area's guest house with Su Changhe and the others, she should have waited until everyone came down the mountain the next day to return together. But who could argue when Qin Yuchu so naturally stood by Fu Hang's side? The car was Fu Hang's. Su Changhe couldn't order Fu Hang around. Su Changhe had heard a few things about Fu Hang and roughly knew the situation between him and Shen Qingluan. So, with a wave of his hand, he let Shen Qingluan leave first, while he stayed behind to oversee everything. Privately, he was even a little gleeful. Her, the next CEO, she gets lost during a simple team-building event, not only disrupting the team, but also making everyone go through the trouble of searching for her, only to leave early herself. Not like me, Su Changhe. In the end, I'm the one who shouldered all the responsibility. I hope the chairman sees her true colors through this incident and reconsiders his original decision. It was late by the time they were heading back. Shen Qingluan, still in the back seat, had fallen asleep again. The day had truly taken its toll on her. Beyond physical exhaustion, her emotions had been on a roller coaster, and Su Changhe's reproachful gaze and unwilling silence had left her deeply unsettled. Fu Hang drove, focused. Once he noticed Shen Qingluan was asleep, he relaxed a bit. Glancing, almost unconsciously, at Qin Yuchu in the passenger seat, a wave of irritation washed over him. Lawyer Zhang had suggested they stay overnight at the scenic area's guest house and leave with the main group tomorrow. But this Qin Yuchu had dismissed Lawyer Zhang with a simple, "I'm tired, I want to go home." Who does she think she is, the CEO's wife? I'm the one driving here. Too bad I don't have a license, or I could take over for a bit, Qin Yuchu murmured, leaning her head against the window, as if sensing his mood. Fu Hang ignored her. Her drive? Even if she dared, I wouldn't dare be her passenger. But then, another thought struck Fu Hang. Compose a poem for the scenery, went over the fair lady. That was the system's quest. But the fair lady? Was it Shen Qingluan or Qin Yuchu? Given the circumstances, Qin Yuchu seemed the more logical choice. If it really was Qin Yuchu, did he even need to be this anxious? If things with Shen Qingluan blew up, so be it. He could just find someone new, right? System? Give me a hint, will you? Is it Qin Yuchu or not? Fu Hang asked inwardly, but the system remained stubbornly silent. He glanced over again and saw Qin Yuchu's eyes were closed too. Just as Fu Hang thought she'd fallen asleep, he heard her whisper, "Drunk, not knowing the sky is in the water, a boat full of star dreams presses down on the Milky Way. Thank you." Fu Hang's grip tightened on the steering wheel. He glanced at the rearview mirror, teeth clenched. Damn system. Qingluan? Qingluan? We're here. The car stopped quietly outside Shen Qingluan's apartment complex. Fu Hang gently woke her. Shen Qingluan opened her eyes, her blurry vision gradually focusing. As she took in her surroundings, she seemed a bit dazed. "You looked exhausted, so I brought you home first. Where should I park the car?" Fu Hang's voice was soft, cautious. "Park it." Shen Qingluan suddenly jolted, her gaze snapping to Qin Yuchu in the passenger seat. I'll park, then get a cab to take her home." Fu Hang blinked, his eyes shifting slightly. He simply didn't dare to be alone with Shen Qingluan. She'd been acting strangely today, her affection points inexplicably jumping by more than 10. And in that tent, Fu Hang had a gut feeling that if Qin Yuchu hadn't come in, something would definitely have happened. At this hour, if it were just the two of them and Shen Qingluan suddenly said, "Want to come up for a bit?" how would he even respond? "It's too late. You should take Yuchu home first," Shen Qingluan managed, struggling to compose herself. Her head was spinning, making it hard to think clearly. Something fell off. "All right then, I'll bring the car over tomorrow morning. You head on up and get some rest." Fu Hang thought for a moment, then nodded agreeably. Shen Qingluan paused again. "Oh right, I'm already home." "Well, drive safe then." Hesitantly, she opened the car door, giving Fu Hang a deep look. Qin Yuchu seemed fast asleep, oblivious to everything. The car pulled away slowly under Shen Qingluan's gaze. She remained standing at the complex entrance until the taillights disappeared from view. Inside the security booth, a guard watched in astonishment. Isn't that the delivery guy? And wasn't there another girl in the passenger seat just now? The guard's eyes followed Shen Qingluan as she walked into the complex, still dumbfounded. That lingering, reluctant look just now. This guy's got game, huh? I must have misjudged him before. Late-night traffic in Hansheng was smooth. In just 20 minutes, the car stopped at another apartment complex. Fu Hang parked and was about to wake Qin Yuchu when he turned and met a pair of star-like eyes. "You're awake," Fu Hang blurted out, instinctively leaning back to create some distance. "Wasn't asleep," Qin Yuchu said coolly. "We're here. Get some rest," Fu Hang said, turning his head to look out the window. "And you?" Qin Yuchu didn't budge, showing no intention of getting out. "I'm going home to sleep, of course. I've had a long day," Fu Hang replied, exasperated, instinctively reaching for a cigarette. Click! A lighter flame flickered to life before his eyes, startling him. Watching the flame dance between her slender fingers, Fu Hang leaned down to light his cigarette and rolled down the window. "It's so late, just sleep here," Qin Yuchu said, putting away the lighter and looking at Fu Hang provocatively. "Are you nuts? Is it that obvious? What on earth are you trying to do? Get out of the car, I need to go home and sleep." Fu Hang took a drag from his cigarette, his gaze increasingly evasive, not daring to look at Qin Yuchu. "Where's your place?" "What's it to you?" "I mean your place. Could be there." Qin Yuchu raised her hand, pointing to a tall building in the distance, the 9th floor. Fu Hang closed his eyes, took another forceful drag from his cigarette, then exhaled sharply and turned to look at Qin Yuchu seriously. "I think we need to have a serious talk." Fu Hang felt he couldn't let this go on. "I'm listening." Qin Yuchu's expression was equally serious. "You did that on purpose today, didn't you?" Fu Hang's gaze was sharp, fixed on her. Qin Yuchu didn't speak, just blinked. "I don't believe that a top student who can expertly build a fire in the wild would get lost in a scenic area." Qin Yuchu still said nothing, merely nodding slightly. "So what exactly are you up to?" "You're pursuing her, and I'm helping you. Right, boss?" Qin Yuchu tilted her head, offering an innocent smile. But that boss stung Fu Hang's heart again. "Fine. You say you want to help me. Is that it?" Fu Hang's expression turned fierce. Qin Yuchu nodded emphatically. "Then starting tomorrow, I want you to do whatever it takes to make her hate me," Fu Hang said in a low voice, a dangerous glint in his eyes. Qin Yuchu was clearly taken aback, frowning and inching away slightly. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely, positively sure," Fu Hang replied, enunciating each word. He'd figured out. With Shen Qingluan, Qin Yuchu was probably his only way out. This woman, despite her eccentricities, was resourceful and devious, more than enough to handle Shen Qingluan. 85, 21%, and that was yesterday's number. God knows what would be by morning. He couldn't do this on his own. He couldn't just play the distant player and let Shen Qingluan's feelings cool down naturally. He still had to check in, clock in, go to work, and get things done. "Aren't you pursuing her?" Qin Yuchu raised an eyebrow, a hint of amusement in her eyes. "That's my business. You're not already married, are you? Chasing her just for, and now you're afraid she'll get clingy? Think whatever you want. Didn't you say you're smart? Figure out yourself. Just tell me, can you do it or not?" "Mission accepted, boss." Qin Yuchu smiled sweetly and unbuckled her seatbelt. "All right, don't lose this again. You left it in the tent." Qin Yuchu suddenly pulled the car's registration document from her pocket and carefully placed it in the glove compartment. Fu Hang's lip twitched. He instinctively patted his pocket. It was empty. Qin Yuchu got out. Fu Hang slammed the accelerator, the tires screeching as he sped off. The same scene played out again at this complex entrance. Even after the car's taillights vanished, the figure remained standing quietly at the gate. "I and the spring breeze are both passers-by. You carry the autumn waters and embrace the Milky Way. Boss." The next morning, Shen Qingluan was curled up in bed, staring blankly at her phone screen. She hadn't slept well, her mind racing with countless thoughts. The phone screen was still locked, but a message notification was visible. "Qingluan, I'm at the community gate." The message had arrived 10 minutes ago, right on time at 8:45. But Shen Qingluan hadn't replied, hadn't even opened the chat. "You're probably still asleep. I parked the car in a public spot in the complex, downstairs from Building 6. I bought breakfast. It's on the passenger seat. If you're awake, remember to come down and get it. I left the car key with security." Half an hour later, a second message arrived. Shen Qingluan still just stared, offering no response. After a night of contemplation, it seemed a realization had dawned on her. At 11:30 a.m., another message from Fu Hang came through. Qingluan, are you awake? Did you eat breakfast? What do you want for lunch? Want to eat out? Or should I buy something and bring it to you? Shen Qingluan hadn't eaten breakfast. She hadn't even properly gotten out of bed and was now standing on the balcony in her pajamas. This was a high-end residential complex, well-equipped with pleasant scenery. From her balcony, she could see the meticulously maintained garden below and the open-air swimming pool not far off. Of course, the monthly rent wasn't cheap either. Fu Hang, if there was ever a chance for us, it would have happened 3 years ago. Her gaze scanned the complex, and she spotted the ADQ-7 in a parking spot downstairs from Building 6. A game booster couldn't afford to live in such a complex, nor could they afford such a car. With a long sigh, Shen Qingluan pulled a hair tie from her wrist, gathered her wavy hair into a ponytail, and swiped open her phone, looking up a number. Lawyer Zhang? It's me, Shen Qingluan. I'm so sorry about yesterday. Shen Qingluan's voice was characteristically gentle, with a hint of apology. Manager Shen, you're too kind. As long as you're both all right. Lawyer Zhang on the other end was clearly taken aback, puzzled by her call. Still, I must apologize. As the event organizer, I dampened your spirits. It was an accident. You didn't mean for it to happen. Nevertheless, I must apologize. Lawyer Zhang, are you free this evening? Could you give me a chance to make amends? Shen Qingluan adopted a very humble tone. This evening, Lawyer Zhang's voice paused, tinged with suspicion. Lawyer Zhang, you've been with the company for some time now, and I haven't had the chance to invite you for a meal. Let's skip the meal, Manager Shen. Just say what's on your mind. Lawyer Zhang's voice grew deeper, heavy with wariness. All right, I'll be direct then. Shen Qingluan took a deep breath. She'd noticed the change in Lawyer Zhang's tone. As you know, Lawyer Zhang, I've just become HR manager. This event was the first project I handled, and I messed it up due to my own reasons. And an assistant Qin was almost put in danger. You want to see the CEO? The shrewd, experienced Lawyer Zhang instantly understood Shen Qingluan's intention when he heard assistant Qin. Yes, I want to apologize to him in person. Shen Qingluan didn't try to hide it, admitting it directly. She knew very well that beating around the bush was pointless with someone like Lawyer Zhang. Lawyer Zhang fell silent. You want to see the CEO? Are you kidding me? How am I supposed to respond to that? Lawyer Zhang had been handling Yuanboy Trading's legal affairs for some time, but due to the CEO's peculiar ways, he had always remained on the periphery of company management, a professional habit crucial for his survival. Thus, he wasn't very familiar with the company's other operations, or even its personnel. In fact, he often deliberately avoided them. As for Shen Qingluan, he had previously only known of her existence. But yesterday, he'd seen her with Fu Hang. He couldn't help but do a little digging. And boy, what he found out almost made him bite his tongue off. A compatriot who delivers food? A simp who's been fawning over her for 3 years? Do rich people really get their kicks in such bizarre ways? I know you're unconventional, Fu Hang, but there have to be limits. With you playing such an unpredictable game, how's anyone else supposed to make any progress? Piecing it all together, Lawyer Zhang reached a staggering conclusion. Could Fu Hang have acquired Yuanboy Trading because of this Shen Qingluan? But then, what on earth was the deal with Qin Yuchu? Was this some kind of real-life harem-building game? So, when he received Shen Qingluan's call, Lawyer Zhang had been surprised but remained polite. But when she invited him to dinner, he became wary and tense. After his inquiries, he had a general idea of Shen Qingluan's style and character, and he'd even vaguely heard about some delicate relationship between her and Su Changhe. He wanted absolutely nothing to do with such a woman. Who knew what Fu Hang was thinking? But now, hearing she wanted to see Fu Hang, how could he respond? Lawyer Zhang, Shen Qingluan spoke hesitantly when she heard no response. Oh, about yesterday's incident, the CEO probably already knows about it. Lawyer Zhang deliberately slowed his speech, buying himself time to think. Shen Qingluan's heart skipped a beat when she heard his reply and tone. The team isn't even back yet, right? The CEO already knows? Could it be Qin Yuchu? Has the CEO already spoken with Lawyer Zhang? Lawyer Zhang, then the CEO? He. Don't worry, the CEO isn't blaming anyone, Lawyer Zhang quickly explained. In that case, could Lawyer Zhang perhaps help arrange an introduction? I've selected some gifts and would like to apologize to the CEO in person. Well, the CEO actually thinks highly of your work. How about this? I'll pass on your request to him. He has your contact information. If he wants to see you, he'll contact you. President Su? Okay, I'll be right there. Lawyer Zhang suddenly answered loudly, as if to someone else on his end. Thank you then, Lawyer Zhang. Sorry to bother you. Hearing Lawyer Zhang call out to President Su, Shen Qingluan knew it was time to end the call. After hanging up, Lawyer Zhang snatched the apple from his daughter's hand and took a fierce bite. The father and daughter were sitting in a quiet corner, far from any crowd. There was no President Su anywhere around. The adult world is so complicated, his daughter, Zhang Xiaolin, said, rolling her eyes. Let me remind you, when you start dating, you're not allowed to date rich guys. Lawyer Zhang couldn't help but caution his daughter. You're nuts. Zhang Xiaolin rolled her eyes again. Meanwhile, Shen Qingluan clutched her phone, her eyes glinting with resentment. Lawyer Zhang's words were clearly just a brush-off. It's so difficult. I'm a manager at the company, an HR manager no less, and I can't even get to see the CEO. She pulled out her phone again, looking at that candid photo of herself. Her gaze fixed on the woman in the picture being carried princess style. Shen Qingluan's eyes turned chillingly sinister. There's no reason you can, and I can't. Fu Hang sat in a park at Century Plaza, clutching a yellow helmet and smoking silently. After his third message still went unanswered, his tense nerves eased slightly. No reply was the best reply. He was genuinely terrified of Shen Qingluan replying instantly. Because Shen Qingluan hadn't replied, he couldn't confirm today's check-in time. All he could do now was wait. Time, at this moment, became incredibly difficult to endure. His phone rang. Fu Hang subconsciously reached for it, only to realize it was his other phone. Damn, he'd forgotten to turn it off again. It was his personal phone. He fished the phone out his bag. Staring at the caller ID, Fu Hang was slightly stunned. Lawyer Zhang. Fu Hang answered the call. Mr. Fu, Shen Qingluan just called me. She said she wants to see you. Lawyer Zhang knew Fu Hang's temperament and didn't beat around the bush, getting straight to the point. What? Shen Qingluan wants to see me? No, Shen Qingluan wants to see the CEO. Fu Hang quickly corrected himself. Yes. How did you reply? Fu Hang's tone lightened instantly. It was like the clouds parting to reveal clear skies, wasn't it? I knew it. My Qingluan's cultivation is unfathomable, her Tao heart as firm as a rock. How could she be swayed so easily? I said I would pass on the message, but whether the CEO will see her depends on the CEO's decision. Lawyer Zhang answered honestly, showing no reaction to Fu Hang's mood swing. You did great. Thanks. Fu Hang hung up immediately and pumped his fist in the air. Wants to see the CEO? This is a sure thing now. It seems Shen Qingluan has completely turned over a new leaf, recognized the reality of the situation, and is looking to the future, planning for the present. He, a mere game booster, was safe for now. He let out a long sigh of relief. Just as he was about to get up, his phone rang again. It was his personal phone once more, but upon seeing this number, Fu Hang's expression instantly darkened. Fu Wanqing. The phone just kept ringing, but Fu Hang didn't move a muscle. After a long while, it stopped. Fu Hang lowered his head, his expression somber. Fu Wanqing, Fu Hang's biological mother. Fu Hang came from a single-parent family in the truest sense of the word. Fu Hang had no father. He didn't even know his father's name. He was what the neighbors called a bastard child. Growing up, he suffered no small amount of humiliation. He had also relentlessly questioned Fu Wanqing about who his father was, but Fu Wanqing never uttered a word. Because of this, he once believed the rumors that he was the consequence of Fu Wanqing's promiscuity, that Fu Wanqing herself didn't know who the child's father was. As a result, his relationship with Fu Wanqing was terrible, so much so that the year he got into university, when Fu Wanqing brought a man home for the first time, he acted incredibly cold. The man was an overseas Chinese, said to have lived abroad for many years, and they had met through a matchmaker. They had a meal at home, and Fu Hang didn't say a single word to them. After that day, he didn't go home for a long time, until Fu Wanqing told him she was getting married. Fu Hang had no idea how the wedding went, because he didn't attend. Then, he received a sum of money, enough for him to finish university and live on for a long time, as well as the two-bedroom apartment he had lived in since childhood. Fu Wanqing left in the early winter of that year. He still didn't show up. It was only in the second month after Fu Wanqing went abroad that he returned home, packed his things, and then sold the apartment. From then on, he practically cut off all contact with Fu Wanqing. He lived like an orphan, squandering the assets Fu Wanqing had left him. Fu Wanqing would call from time to time. He would occasionally answer, but always acted cold. Did he hate her? He might have once, hating her for not giving him a complete family. But on the day he saw that somewhat portly, honest-looking overseas Chinese man, he suddenly realized he didn't hate her anymore. He began to hate himself. That was the first and only time Fu Wanqing had brought a man home. A woman who had supposedly been promiscuous in her youth and had a child out of wedlock. How could that be? He hated himself, hated this superfluous self. It was he who had ruined Fu Wanqing's life. So he acted even colder. That man was an overseas Chinese, destined to leave. If Fu Wanqing chose that man, she couldn't have any lingering attachments to him. Otherwise, she wouldn't leave with that man with peace of mind. The phone rang again. Fu Hang frowned slightly. The caller ID was still Fu Wanqing. This wasn't normal. In the past, if he didn't answer, she wouldn't call again, at least not for a short while. Fu Wanqing's occasional calls were merely to check if Fu Hang was okay. This time, Fu Hang answered the phone. Fu Hang. The voice on the other end carried a hint of pleasant surprise, yet it sounded weak. Are you sick? Fu Hang immediately sat up straight. No, just a little cold. Fu Wanqing heard the anxiety in Fu Hang's voice and smiled with relief. She saw her son's coldness, but he was the son she had raised single-handedly. How could she not understand his thoughts? However, this was life. Not every choice led to a desired outcome. Most of life wasn't about grand gestures, but about choices made after compromises. Her son's coldness was a kind of tacit understanding between mother and son. The son let the mother feel at ease. The mother let the son feel reassured. Is there something you need? Fu Hang's voice turned cold again. How's work? Is it going well? Fu Wanqing ignored Fu Hang's change in tone and asked gently. I quit my job and opened a milk tea shop. Business is pretty good, though. Fu Hang carefully tried to discern the weakness in her voice, pondered for a moment, and gave an appropriate answer. Have you found a girlfriend? Fu Wanqing asked perfunctorily, as if completely unconcerned about Fu Hang's work. Fu Hang frowned again. Bizarrely, images of number 1, number 2, number 3 flashed through his mind until Qin Youchu's image intruded, jolting him awake. Are you sure you're okay? Just a little cold. A flicker of unease crossed Fu Hang's mind. You're not getting any younger, you know. It's time you found a girlfriend. Girls these days are picky. You should be aware of your own situation. When you're looking for a girl, don't. Did you call just to tell me this? Fu Hang cut her off mid-ramble. Silence on the other end. Fu Hang didn't speak. He quietly lit a cigarette, holding his phone and waiting, but the hand holding the cigarette trembled almost imperceptibly. Your father. He found me. After a long pause, a very low whisper came from the other end. Boom. It was as if a clap of thunder exploded in Fu Hang's mind. In that moment of silence, he had run through so many scenarios. He had even figured out how to get Lawyer Zhang to help him with a visa. But he never, ever expected Fu Wanqing to give him such an answer. I don't have a father. Fu Hang hung up the phone directly. The phone didn't ring again. Fu Hang just sat there silently, smoking one cigarette after another. Father? Heh, you better not find me. I still have a good life ahead of me. I don't want to become a criminal, because I won't be able to stop myself from beating you to death. Forcefully stubbing out the cigarette in his palm, Fu Hang reached for another, only to find the pack empty. A small, fair hand suddenly appeared from behind him, slender fingers holding a pack of cigarettes, his usual brand. Surprised, he turned his head and met a pair of star-like eyes. But at this moment, those eyes lacked their usual sparkle, instead holding a well-like depth and calm. Fu Hang took the cigarettes. Just as he was about to open the pack, a cup of milk tea was presented before him. Mango pomelo sago. Pop! A straw pierced the lid, and a slender figure sat down beside him. Fu Hang turned his head to look, only to see the girl staring straight ahead, lips pursed, vigorously sipping her own drink, her cheeks puffing out as she slowly chewed. What are you doing here? Fu Hang's voice was hoarse. Feeling the warmth of the milk tea in his palm, he suddenly felt reluctant to drink it. Just passing by. It was free anyway, so I brought you one. Fu Hang was speechless. So, you just show up on time every day to freeload milk tea? 25 for the smokes. Just send me the money. Qin Youchu took another sip, nudging a cigarette but on the ground with her foot. Thanks. Fu Hang lowered his head, ignoring the cigarette money, and took a hard drag on his milk tea. I signed up for driving school this morning. Qin Youchu's gaze drifted to the distance again. At Century Square, pigeons were startled by children, taking flight in a vast, spectacular swarm that filled the sky. Fu Hang, puzzled, tilted his head slightly. After signing up, I tried out a car. The instructor praised my talent, said I might be his fastest student ever from sign-up to license. Fu Hang frowned. Seriously, you never quit, do you? Gotta show off your top student cred, even with this? And come to think of it, you really are an ace everywhere you go, huh? So, you can start thinking about buying me a car. A mouthful of milk tea sprayed out. Fu Hang stared at Qin Youchu in astonishment. I take back that thanks from earlier. You think one pack of smokes is going to get you a car from me? That one from the other day was nice. The ADQ7. Classy. How about that one? Qin Yuchu pulled out a tissue and carefully handed it to Fu Hang. How can you say that so matter-of-factly? Fu Hang was completely stunned. His previous clients always beat around the bush, using metaphors, implications, hints, suggestions. Well, why not? Qin Yuchu's tone sounded innocent and a tad playful. This suddenly left Fu Hang speechless. It's like, there's nothing wrong with that? No, there's a huge problem with that. Considering our current relationship, isn't it a bit much to just ask for a car? Fu Hang's eyes widened. Which is more expensive, a house or a car? Qin Yuchu suddenly asked, all serious. Obviously. So, no, buying you a house, that was. Fu Hang suddenly froze. Wait a minute. Why'd I buy her a house? She's not a client, is she? Qin Yuchu said nothing, blinking her large eyes, waiting for Fu Hang to continue. Huh, that's not right. Fu Hang had a realization. Qin Yuchu isn't a client? Why am I treating her like this? She still owes me money. How did things get to this point? What did I miss? The two stared at each other for a long moment, one looking innocent, the other completely stupefied. Fu Hang. A surprised voice came from beside him. Li Weiyong. Fu Hang started, quickly snapping out of his daze. It was professional habit, because Li Weiyong was a client. Client number 3. It really is you. What are you? Li Weiyong's gaze shifted from Fu Hang's face to the small yellow helmet beside him, then to the yellow vest he was wearing, then to Qin Yuchu's face, and finally back to Fu Hang. Qin Yuchu's eyes twinkled as she quietly sipped her milk tea. Didn't you go abroad? Fu Hang quickly changed the subject. Li Weiyong, the first client whose favorability score had broken 80%. When it reached a high of 83, 87, a rich second-generation heir had appeared out of nowhere, and then she'd had a whirlwind marriage and moved abroad. I'm back for some things. A flicker of unease crossed Li Weiyong's face. And this young lady is just a passerby. Qin Yuchu put down her milk tea and smiled sweetly. A passerby? Li Weiyong looked utterly unconvinced. The way you two were exchanging such charged glances just now. When did Fu Hang meet such a pretty girl? And so young? A college student, maybe? Also, why is Fu Hang delivering food? Did his investments fail? In Li Weiyong's eyes, Fu Hang's persona was that of a freelance venture capitalist, a good-for-nothing moocher living off the inheritance from his mother who had moved abroad, just idling his life away. I was just passing by and saw this poor guy utterly heartbroken over a breakup, so I decided to be kind, offer some comfort, and save a soul on the brink of despair. Qin Yuchu pointed to the pile of cigarette butts on the ground. This actually made Li Weiyong frown slightly. She looked up at Fu Hang, half believing Qin Yuchu's words. Is this lady your cheating ex-girlfriend? Qin Yuchu tilted her head, asking Fu Hang with wide-eyed innocence. No, we're friends. Li Weiyong flinched, a trace of guilt in her eyes. Strictly speaking, Qin Yuchu wasn't exactly wrong. Back then, Fu Hang had been pursuing her intensely, and she had developed considerable feelings for him too, but then... Right, we're just friends. Fu Hang shot up, reflexively coming to Li Weiyong's defense. Even though she wasn't a client anymore, many habits were hard to break, especially for someone whose favorability score had once reached 83, 87%, not like this time. So, expanding the business is a must. Are you doing okay? Seeing Fu Hang stand up, Li Weiyong subconsciously took half a step forward, then jolted, not taking the other half. Me? Well, you see how it is. Fu Hang instinctively patted his yellow vest, his eyes darting away. My persona's totally shattered, isn't it? With her, I'm supposed to be an investor. Li Weiyong came from a wealthy family. There was no way she'd fall for someone from the bottom rungs of society. That's why Fu Hang had put so much effort into crafting his persona back then. He'd even paid for an online finance course membership and learned a ton of incomprehensible jargon. I have an appointment. Let's talk when we have time. Li Weiyong wanted to say more, but the passerby's eyes beside them, full of gossip and scrutiny, made her extremely uncomfortable. Yeah, talk soon. Fu Hang felt like he'd been granted amnesty, anxiously wringing his hands. Li Weiyong walked away in her heels, leaving the disarray behind. So, really an ex-girlfriend? Qin Yuchu pulled Fu Hang back down to sit, her face alight with curiosity. Yeah. Fu Hang shot her an annoyed glance. Then, watching Li Weiyong's retreating figure, thoughtfully pulled out a cigarette. Click! A flame flickered to life before his eyes, startling Fu Hang again. Is that my lighter? I never said it was mine, did I? Qin Yuchu wrinkled her nose. Quick! Spill the details. What's there to say? Just an ex. Fu Hang couldn't be bothered to explain, lowering his head to light his cigarette and taking a light drag. He'd smoked a bit too much today. His mouth tasted bitter. Huh, why did I smoke so much today, anyway? The Shen Qingluan type? The flame died down. Qin Yuchu pocketed the lighter, speaking as if it were a casual remark. Fu Heng whipped his head around, staring intently at Qin Yuchu. The Shen Qingluan type? What type? Spell it out. That sentence carries a lot of information. What does this vixen know? Such a big reaction? Did I guess right? Right about what? What about Shen Qingluan? Fu Heng was inwardly on alert. Qin Yuchu didn't speak, just narrowed her eyes and watched him quietly. Her gaze made Fu Heng's skin crawl. You don't like her, Qin Yuchu said, enunciating each word. Don't like who? Shen Qingluan? After all I've done, you say I don't like her? Fu Heng hurriedly retorted. This is an insult, slander, a smear on my professional career. Don't lie to me. I can tell. What does a slip of a girl like you know? Read a few romance novels, and now you think you're a relationship expert. Qin Yuchu didn't answer, instead tilting up her chin with the air of a top student. Huh, then who do you say I like? Don't tell me it's you. Fu Heng scoffed, curling his lip. You don't like me either? At least, not right now. Qin Yuchu lowered her head, her voice unusually calm. Fu Heng froze. A pang of sourness rippled through a shadowy corner of his heart. It was unfamiliar, and this unfamiliarity terrified him. Let's go, time to eat. Qin Yuchu stood up and yanked Fu Heng to his feet. You go ahead. I'm not hungry. Fu Heng looked at her warily. This woman was starting to give him some serious creepy vibes. I'm going to Peace Hotel, she said, refusing to let go of his arm. What's that got to do with me? Fu Heng snapped. You think I'm in the mood for a fancy meal right now? Wait, what was I even doing today? Wasn't I supposed to be feeling completely depressed? It's Peace Hotel, Qin Yuchu repeated, standing straight and looking at him earnestly. That look made Fu Heng even more confused. Of course, he knew Peace Hotel, one of the most upscale places in Hansung. In his eyes, it had one defining trait: insanely expensive. We're talking $288 for a bowl of plain congee, $198 for a Coke with a slice of lemon. He'd been there twice, once with Shen Qingluan and once with the recently departed Li Weiyang. Both times, the system paid. You think I could afford it if you don't come? Qin Yuchu blinked those wide eyes at him, as if this was the most reasonable thing in the world. Fu Heng stared at her, speechless. How could someone be this shamelessly confident? Come on, you're CEO. What's so strange about treating your assistant to a meal? She ignored his protests and dragged him forward. But that place isn't some random diner. You can't just walk in and expect a table. I made a reservation. She pulled out her phone and showed him the booking. Fu Heng was utterly lost. What did I miss? When did you turn into this? What happened to the struggling, straight, a student with a tragic backstory he fighting for survival? Did you drive? Fu Heng held up the helmet in his hand. No. I checked online. Turns out normal cars can't even get into the parking lot there. The security won't let them in. You have a reservation, Fu Heng said through gritted teeth. Suddenly, it all came rushing back. His dad. Ugh, what bad luck. You know what? Fine. Let's splurge. Call it revenge shopping. I just didn't want you getting discriminated against. Your net worth is over 100 million, Qin Yuchu said with a smile. Me? Fu Heng froze. He pointed at his bright yellow delivery vest and held up the helmet. I'm worried about being discriminated against? He laughed. Oh, so now you're proud of it. Qin Yuchu snatched the helmet from him. Yuchu. A surprised voice rang out nearby. They turned to see a sunshine-white young man with a guitar on his back. You rejected me for this delivery guy. Leilu looked stunned, staring at their joined hands like it was the end of the world. Fu Heng froze mid-step. Wait, how many characters have shown up while I was smoking a cigarette? This guy. He subtly pulled his hand away and glanced at Qin Yuchu for an explanation. Seems like one of the singers from Hansung University, she said, raising her half-empty milk tea for a sip. But it made a loud gurgle. She was basically sucking air through the straw now. Singer? Fu Heng repeated, suddenly feeling like that made the guy more dangerous somehow. Yuchu. Lei Li's eyes widened, full of heartbreak and disbelief. He could handle Lu Junkai from the student council. He could tolerate Yao Jun from the sports department, who stood at 191 centimeters tall. But this delivery guy, it felt like a personal insult. Correction, Qin Yuchu said as she took Fu Heng's hand again and raised it. This has nothing to do with whether he delivers food or not. Even if you delivered food, I still wouldn't like you. She said it with absolute seriousness. Was that really necessary? Couldn't you have said it more gently? Fu Heng protested. In that moment, something clicked for him. Target customer development, his investment strategy. He arranged work, bought her a house. What was it all for? Oops, sorry, give me a second. Let me rephrase that. Qin Yuchu frowned and let go of his hand, genuinely pondering. Fu Hang stared up at the sky at a 65-degree angle. Meanwhile, Layla looked like a vein in his forehead was about to burst. Yuchu, Layla began angrily, but Qin Yuchu looked up, sincere and solemn. Laylu senpai, she said, interrupting his exit. Her voice was calm and gentle, and something in her eyes made him instinctively straighten up. I'm grateful for your admiration, she said, voice soft as flowing water. Your pursuit caught me off guard. It made me nervous. You probably already know about my background. My family. You're an outstanding guy. But someone like you, standing next to me, makes me feel unsafe. Her tone was gentle, like a spring breeze brushing past. I can't meet your passionate gaze. Just like I can't face my own heart. You're handsome and carefree. Someone destined to shine in everyone's eyes. But me? She took a step closer to Fu Hang. I'm just a little duckling hiding under the eaves. There are things in this world that effort alone can't overcome. It's called class. Right now, being next to him makes me feel at peace. Tears shimmered in her eyes. No, Yuchu, that's not true. Layla was all in now, nearly shouting. Please, just let me be. She cut him off, a tear finally slipping free. She turned, grabbed the edge of Fu Hang's shirt, and jogged away, head bowed. Yuchu. Laylu reached forward, fingers grasping at the empty air. All he caught was a gust of autumn wind. It's all my fault. I was just too perfect. Out of the park, Fu Hang was completely stunned. Holy crap, that was Oscar-worthy. System, did you see that? Nothing to say. Are you biased against her, or what? Where did you even learn that? Fu Hang turned to Yuchu, eyes shining with admiration. Knew it. She's a born Saint physique protagonist. I've been binging romance novels lately. How'd I do? Flawless. If I had a nitpick, maybe you overdid the tears a little. Huh? Too dramatic? She frowned. Not really. The emotion was solid. But if you kept the tears from actually falling, just let them well up. That kind of restrained sorrow hits harder, leaves room for interpretation. Got it. She nodded seriously, taking mental notes. Wait, you read romance novels? Fu Hang looked surprised. Wasn't she supposed to be a top student? Work-related. Fu Hang paused. Something felt off. You want another milk tea? He asked, watching her head toward the shop. No, I need the helmet, she said, turning back with a puzzled look. Damn it, I totally forgot why we came out in the first place. You snapped out of character faster than me. A delivery e-bike pulled up to the entrance of Ping'an restaurant and, unsurprisingly, was stopped by security. However, the anticipated disdain and mockery never came. The guard demeanor was perfectly suited to the restaurant's high-end status, and he politely asked their reason for being there. Fu Hang was a bit taken aback. Shen Qingluan occasionally ordered from upscale places, and dressed in his current attire, he'd been turned away more than a few times. It wasn't until Qin Yuchu showed their reservation details, and the guard kindly directed them to a parking spot for the e-bike, that it dawned on Fu Hang. The guard's courtesy wasn't a testament to his professionalism, but rather due to Qin Yuchu. A woman, a man's best accessory, indeed. Seated at their reserved table, Fu Hang was still reflecting on this. He glanced at Qin Yuchu, and Fu Wanqing's words inexplicably surfaced in his mind. Not getting any younger. What bewitching nonsense. Try to mess with my focus. I'm a man of iron, a dedicated worker. What's all this about romance? Pathetic. Wow, this place is truly extraordinary. One dish could cover my living expenses for a year. Qin Yuchu, tablet in hand, put on an exaggerated expression and whispered to Fu Hang with a wink. You jumped the gun. Keep flipping. Fu Hang rolled his eyes. Forget you. My entire annual salary back in the day would have barely covered one decent meal here. Ding. Temporary mission triggered. Music from another world needs to be shared. Propagate the song reserve in a suitable manner. Completion will yield a corresponding reward. A peculiar voice resonated in his mind. Fu Hang's head snapped up, his gaze, filled with alarm and doubt, fixed on Qin Yuchu, who was engrossed in ordering across from him. System? System? It's her, isn't it? Fu Hang's voice trembled in his mind. A tremor he couldn't tell was from excitement or alarm. The system, however, remained silent. What's wrong? Qin Yuchu, sensing Fu Hang's odd behavior, stopped what she was doing. It's nothing. You order, Fu Hang said, taking a deep breath as his eyes scanned their surroundings. This made no sense. The system never acted without purpose. This was the second time, and Qin Yuchu had been present on both occasions. Spread a song? By singing here? Fu Hang felt a knot of indecision. If a client were sitting across from him, he wouldn't have the slightest hesitation. It was work after all. For money. Nothing to be ashamed of. But with Qin Yuchu across the table, an inexplicable wave of self-consciousness hit him. Why don't you look at the menu? Qin Yuchu hesitated, noticing Fu Hang squirming, then tentatively placed the tablet on the table and gently slid it over to him. No, it's fine. Just order whatever you like. Fu Hang said, giving the menu a cursory glance. Say, how about we talk about buying you that car instead? Fu Hang winced. The prices displayed in the bottom corner made his toes curl. No rush on the car. Let's wait until I get my license, Qin Yuchu replied, seemingly oblivious to Fu Hang's subtle hint. She arched an eyebrow, retrieved the tablet, and resumed her perusal. Young lady, let not go overboard. Fu Hang leaned in, his voice a low warning. After a meal like this, who knows if I'll ever get another chance to come here in my entire life, Qin Yuchu said calmly, without lifting her head. Miss, you'll scare off your benefactor like this. What if he slips off to the restroom and never comes back? It happens, they even report it on the news. Fu Hang advised, his tone a mix of friendly counsel and a veiled threat. Qin Yuchu paused, looking up thoughtfully. That's more like it, Fu Hang thought. She's teachable after all. Nope. But to his surprise, Qin Yuchu gave a willful flick of her bangs and dove back into the menu. Fu Hang was rendered speechless and looked away. It wasn't that he couldn't afford it. Rather, Fu Hang felt need to instill in her a sound perspective on spending and risk assessment. If she developed a taste for this kind of spending, what would happen to that guy with the guitar? Or the student council vice president? Handing the tablet to the waiter, Qin Yuchu smiled sweetly. You've been here before? Qin Yuchu asked, picking up her lemonade. Finding no straw, she sipped it a little awkwardly. Fu Hang nodded. With Shen Qingluan, Qin Yuchu's eyes narrowed. Fu Hang rolled his eyes, clearly not intending to answer. Or, with the lady behind you. Qin Yuchu suddenly arched an eyebrow in an exaggerated, teasing manner. Behind me? Fu Hang froze, then turned his head, suspicious. Li Weiyang? Fu Hang's eyes widened in astonishment. Li Weiyang, who had been walking in their direction, also paused. Friends of yours? The man beside Li Weiyang turned his head, his expression cool. But the next instant, he noticed Qin Yuchu. If they're friends, go say hello, the man said, assertively taking Li Weiyang's arm and leading her straight towards Fu Hang's table. What a coincidence, Fu Hang said, politely rising. It was the courtesy one showed a client, especially when the client was accompanied by a man. Hello, aren't you going to make an introduction? The man said with a smile, turning to Li Weiyang. Fancy meeting you here. This is my husband, Wang Haitao. And this is Fu Hang, Li Weiyang said, steeling herself as she made the introductions, looking somewhat ill at ease. Fu Hang, Wang Haitao echoed, pausing. He clearly had some recollection of the name. Hello, Fu Hang said, extending his hand for a polite handshake. So this was the rich heir? He certainly looked the part. Distinguished and impressive, a real catch. So it is you, Wang Haitao said, his grip on Fu Hang's hand not loosening, his expression turning peculiar. You know me? Fu Hang thought, mentally rolling his eyes. He could put up with this sort of melodrama during work hours, but he really didn't want to deal with it now that he was off the clock. Still, what could he say? The guy had bailed him out once. Fu Hang owed him a favor. I've heard your name mentioned, Wang Haitao said, finally releasing Fu Hang's hand with a knowing smile. And this is... Li Weiyang interjected, changing the subject and turning her gaze to Qin Yuchu, the apparent third wheel. Allow me to introduce myself properly. My name is Qin Yuchu. I'm a financially struggling student, Mr. Fu is sponsoring, Qin Yuchu said, not even bothering to rise, just tilting her head and smiling sweetly at the couple. A struggling student? Li Weiyang and Wang Haitao exclaimed in unison, their eyes wide with surprise. Li Weiyang, in particular, who had just been on the receiving end of a rather sharp retort from Qin Yuchu, was stunned. She never imagined this young woman was a university student Fu Hang was sponsoring. But wait, hadn't his investments tanked, forcing him to work as a delivery driver? Li Weiyang glanced sideways. Fu Hang was still in those cheap clothes she'd seen him in before, just minus the conspicuous yellow delivery vest. You've really changed, Li Weiyang remarked, her eyes subtly sweeping across the opulent restaurant. He's delivering food, yet he's treating a struggling student here? He was just kidding with you earlier, Qin Yuchu interjected, clearly reading Li Weiyang's expression. She explained with poise, Mr. Fu actually took over a bubble tea shop. Business was a bit slow, so he decided to do the deliveries himself to get a first-hand understanding of the market. Li Weiyang's eyes widened in understanding. That did sound like Fu Hang, always insisting on being hands-on. Miss Yuchu, a pleasure to meet you. Would you mind giving me your number? Wang Haitao cut in, completely ignoring the others. He strode directly to Qin Yuchu's side, phone already in hand. Hitting on me right in front of your wife. Is that really appropriate? Qin Yuchu tilted her head, her expression one of amused disbelief. Actually, we're in the middle of divorce proceedings. We just saw our lawyers this afternoon, Wang Haitao replied, utterly unfazed. He even spared a smiling glance at Li Weiyang as he explained earnestly. You're getting divorced? Fu Hang blurted out, astonished. That was fast. How long has it even been? 6 months? 8. It's rather embarrassing, Li Weiyang mumbled, her face flushed, especially with Fu Hang right there. The unspoken subtext hung heavy in the air. See? Fu Hang? You were blind not to choose me. And look who I ended up with. And now look at you, with this struggling student. What a total soap opera. Fu Hang cringed internally. He was equally nonplussed. What did he possibly say to that? Thanks for the update. Sorry to hear that. Oh, sorry. Qin Yuchu said, her expression theatrically dismissive. I'm even less interested in divorced men. She shot a pointed glance at Fu Hang, as if to ask, too harsh? Should I have sugar-coated it? No worries. Perhaps another time. Wang Haitao responded with surprising composure, not a hint of displeasure on his face. He gave a slight nod and proceeded further into the restaurant. Sorry for the interruption, Li Weiyang managed, forcing a smile. She gave a small wave and hurried after him. As Fu Hang watched them leave, still lost in thought, Qin Yuchu leaned forward, her bright eyes fixed on him with a curious gaze. What is it? Fu Hang glared at her. Don't you have anything you want to say? Qin Yuchu's voice was a low murmur. What am I supposed to think? Oh, lots of things, right? Like feeling wistful and sad? Or maybe you're enjoying the show. Perhaps a bit of schadenfreude? Or are you feeling lucky? Or regret? Qin Yuchu's tone was teasing, but she uttered the last word with utter seriousness. What do I have to regret? Fu Hang turned his head away, a disdainful smirk playing on his lips. You can't get what you desire. You don't cherish what you have. When you're together, you can't let go of the past. Once you're apart, you start to miss them. When you miss them, you long to meet again, and when you finally do, it feels like you met too late. Isn't that how life is? Just one big pile of regrets. Qin Yuchu's gaze was piercing, her voice tinged with a peculiar emotion. Fu Hang fell silent. He couldn't pinpoint which word had struck a chord, but inexplicably, a wave of emotions washed over him. To him, that encounter had just been work. What the hell did she understand? So, Fu Hang looked up, his gaze challenging Qin Yuchu. So, I don't want to have any regrets, Qin Yuchu declared, her gaze firm, as if she were taking an oath. In that instant, Fu Hang, for some goddamn reason, saw something akin to conviction deep in her eyes. Damn it! Fu Hang guiltily averted his eyes. He had to admit, her gaze had burned him. Sincerity always cuts the deepest. A waiter approached with a tray and set down 2 glasses. The first thing they brought out was drinks? Fu Hang eyed the concoction in his glass, giving it a suspicious stir with his spoon. Mango pomelo sago? Fu Hang asked, surprised. I wanted to see the difference between the 288 yuan version and the 68 yuan one. The 28 and 68 yuan ones near school aren't that different anyway, Qin Yuchu said with a cheerful smile, though it dimmed a little when she noticed there were no straws. They have it for 28 near school, and you take the bus all the way here for a 68 yuan one. Fu Hang was even more exasperated. The 28 yuan one means I have to spend 28 yuan. The 68 yuan one is free, Qin Yuchu retorted, looking at Fu Hang as if he were an idiot. Fu Hang turned away, defeated, and signaled a waiter. 2 straws, please. The big ones. Qin Yuchu grinned, her smile as sweet as a mango pomelo sago with extra cream. The dishes arrived one by one, each so exquisitely presented that Qin Yuchu practically beamed. One, in particular, named Ink Wash Mountains and Verdant Waters, was actually presented as a series of 4 miniature landscape paintings made of food. The world of the rich is truly beyond imagination, Qin Yuchu remarked dramatically. Tell me about it. Fu Hang echoed, raising his wine glass and downing the tart red wine in one go. This stuff, nearly 6 figures a bottle. He had indeed been here twice before, but on both occasions, his dates had been tactful enough to order modestly. So, many of these dishes were new to him as well. Maybe he needed to change his mindset. Having money and not knowing how to spend it. Wasn't that just being a bloody idiot? The food was delicious, absolutely justifying the price, and they both ate heartily. The company has an upcoming project for the next phase, Qin Yuchu said suddenly, as they were finishing their meal. Fu Hang paused, looking up at her with a questioning gaze. For a moment, he didn't grasp what she was saying. The one with whom you group, Qin Yuchu clarified, putting down her chopsticks and looking at him earnestly. And Fu Hang had polished off most of the red wine himself, while Qin Yuchu hadn't had a drop. He was starting to feel the effects. Qin Yuchu said nothing, merely gazing intently at Fu Hang, at his slightly unfocused eyes. Never mind, she said after a long pause, suddenly breaking into a smile and picking up her lemonade. Are you talking about whim trading? Fu Hang asked, as if finally recalling something. All right, even the most expensive wine isn't worth overdoing it. You can go settle the bill now, Qin Yuchu said, smiling again, her expression as bright and innocent as ever. Weren't you the one who ordered it? Fu Hang's mouth twitched. Why on earth order it, if she wasn't going to drink any? That was a whole day's pay. I wanted to see if everyone who drinks alcohol would make me feel scared, Qin Yuchu said, her voice faltering slightly as she raised a hand to her cheek. Fu Hang's buzz began to fade, and he even felt a little dispirited. Not everyone who drinks is like that. Fu Hang started. I understand now. Qin Yuchu nodded seriously, her usual radiant smile absent, her eyes remarkably clear. Fu Hang averted his gaze, as if reluctant to tarnish that purity. The bill. Fu Hang paid smoothly and without a moment's hesitation. Qin Yuchu, however, insisted the waiter print an itemized receipt, meticulously checked every line, and then clutched it tightly in her hand. Well, that rather deflates the grand impression I was going for when I scanned to pay. Fu Hang murmured in her ear with an amused smile as he stood up. A meal costing over 100,000. How can I not treasure this? This might be a once-in-a-lifetime experience for me. Qin Yuchu mumbled, her head still bowed as she scrutinized the figures on the receipt. Next time, Fu Hang began, then paused, trailing off. It was complicated. Will they come again? Who would foot the bill? Himself? Or the system? Whatever the answer, Fu Hang didn't want to confront it. If we come back, it'll be my treat, Qin Yuchu said, suddenly looking up at him seriously, as if she had once again read his mind. Yeah, right. You still owe me hundreds of thousands, Fu Hang retorted with a wry laugh. But didn't we agree I'd pay that debt with my body? Qin Yuchu's tone shifted dramatically. When did I ever say? Fu Hang's temple throbbed, but in the next instant, he froze as if zapped by electricity. He wanted to turn, but it was too late. But you clearly did. Qin Yuchu continued teasing, but noticing Fu Hang's odd reaction, she followed his gaze. A flicker of astonishment crossed her own face. Shen Qingluan? When the world was with today, Fu Hang despaired. Couldn't they coordinate their appearances a bit more reasonably? Were they all showing up so randomly just to advance the plot? Shen Qingluan visibly froze when she saw them, because sitting across from her was Su Changhe. Sister Qingluan? Qin Yuchu was the first to snap out of it. Their eyes met, and almost without pausing, she headed in their direction, pleasantly surprised. The layout of Ping'an restaurant was actually quite well designed, offering excellent privacy between tables. But how should one put it? Unless it was a private booth, and even those had doors that opened sometimes, you couldn't expect total seclusion. What a coincidence, you two, Shen Qingluan said as Qin Yuchu approached, glancing at Su Changhe before quickly rising to her feet. Fu Hang and I just finished eating. Oh, Vice President Su, you're here too? Qin Yuchu acted as if she'd only just then noticed Su Changhe, feigning a slight surprise before quickly greeting him. Oh, Qingluan and I were just discussing some matters. This must be Fu Hang, right? I met yesterday. Hello. Fu Hang managed, stealing himself. Just moments ago, as he'd taken his first sip of wine, the system's daily tally had come through. Shen Qingluan, favorability, 79. 89%. Just as he predicted, after a night to cool off, her numbers had indeed fallen back into the safe zone. But an encounter like this, he prayed it wouldn't stir up any new trouble. You too. Shen Qingluan, after a moment of shock, quickly found her angle. She shouldn't be the one embarrassed. It should be you. Qin Yuchu. As for Fu Hang, she had 100 ways to explain things later. Fu Hang saved me yesterday. I'm treating him to a good meal to thank him. Qin Yuchu replied graciously. You and Fu Hang, eating alone? The CEO, Shen Qingluan looked troubled, her gaze sweeping over Su Changhe. The CEO picked up the tab. Actually, you didn't think the two of us could afford this, did you? Qin Yuchu replied cheerfully, not forgetting to wave the receipt in her hand. Shen Qingluan had sharp eyes and caught a glimpse of the number on it. Her expression froze. The CEO truly cares about assistant Qin, Su Changhe remarked with a casual cough and a smile. Qin Yuchu smiled sweetly, a little shy, with a touch of girlish coyness. Well, we won't disturb you then. Enjoy your meal. Qin Yuchu waved and pulled Fu Hang away. Goodbye. In front of Su Changhe, Fu Hang behaved quite appropriately. Only when he looked at Shen Qingluan did a flicker of embarrassment cross his eyes, a flicker that Shen Qingluan caught perfectly. Damn it, he thought, that's all I can do. Leave it to fate. At least for that look just now, I'd give myself a 9. 8. After they left, Shen Qingluan's face fell. Was it because of the CEO? Or because of that Fu Hang? Su Changhe's voice was devoid of emotion. The CEO, of course. I didn't expect this Qin Yuchu to actually have some tricks up her sleeve, inviting a man out to eat alone, and the CEO even pays for her. Shen Qingluan quickly composed herself. Truthfully, she wasn't sure what had caused the displeasure she felt in that moment when their eyes met. And you're so sure the CEO paid? Su Changhe raised an eyebrow. Of course. I know Fu Hang. He couldn't possibly afford to spend over 100,000 on a meal for a young woman. Shen Qingluan's tone was tinged with bitterness. The last time Fu Hang had come here with her, she had only ordered a few very ordinary, common dishes, totaling only a few thousand. Su Changhe chuckled softly, slowly swirling the wine in his glass, his eyes narrowed in thought. Shen Qingluan's thoughts were in turmoil. Suddenly, the feast before her lost its appeal. The number on that receipt kept flashing in her mind, especially since she was the one who had invited Su Changhe. Chances were she'd be the one footing the bill for this. Mr. Su, we need to think of something quickly, or the CEO's position will be. Shen Qingluan began hesitantly. What can I do? I can't even get a meeting with the CEO. Su Changhe's tone shifted abruptly, as if their previous discussions and hints had never happened. You really can't see the CEO? You're the one calling the shots in the company right now, aren't you? Shen Qingluan pressed, unwilling to give up, offering a bit of flattery. I'm just an executive vice president. The signing authority lies with Assistant Qin. Su Changhe was as steady as a mountain, leisurely taking a sip of red wine. Shen Qingluan cursed inwardly. Putting on an act now, are we? I don't believe you're not anxious. You think you could just accept this? That may be so, but you certainly know more about the company's affairs than I do. The CEO is just temporarily infatuated with Qin Yuchu. As long as... Shen Qingluan suppressed her annoyance and continued with a forced smile. Su Changhe remained silent, lowering his head and continuing to eat earnestly. Seeing this, Shen Qingluan fell into helpless silence. She had said all she could. Saying more would seem too deliberate and would only lower her own standing. Lawyer Zhang's daughter, she should be in her second year of high school, right? By my calculations, isn't her coming-of-age ceremony in about half a month? Su Changhe suddenly remarked, as if making small talk. Thank you for the reminder, Mr. Su. Shen Qingluan paused, then quickly expressed her thanks. But inwardly, she was exasperated. If things with Lawyer Zhang were a viable option, why would I have gone to such lengths and expense to treat you to this meal? That Hengyu project is up for review tomorrow. If it goes smoothly, there'll be a negotiation meeting with Hengyu next week, Su Changhe continued, still in a casual tone. Shen Qingluan was taken aback again. Why is he telling me this? I'm in HR. I don't have a vote on such a big project, do I? Hengyu's crown prince. I hear he just returned from abroad and has started to take over company affairs. If all goes as expected, he'll be in charge of this project for Hengyu. Thank you for your guidance, Mr. Su. Shen Qingluan understood. She forced a smile, desperately resisting the urge to throw her drink in his face. What does he take me for? A PR girl? A socialite? Exiting the restaurant, Fu Hang let out a long breath and started walking towards where his e-bike was parked, but Qin Yuchu grabbed his arm. Let's get a taxi. Your bike won't get stolen parked here. Besides, with this, Qin Yuchu waved the receipt. They won't charge you for parking. Seriously, she thought, a meal that cost over 100,000. If the bike really got stolen, the restaurant would probably compensate him with a new one. It'll be inconvenient to come back for it tomorrow. Fu Hang tried to resist. Don't drink and drive. Although Qin Yuchu didn't have a driver's license, she had started studying traffic laws from the day she decided to get one. An e-bike? Fu Hang was speechless. Isn't an e-bike a vehicle? Did you buy your license? Scorn from the top student, +1. In the end, the two of them got into a rideshare car Qin Yuchu had hailed. The car stopped at the entrance of her residential complex. Qin Yuchu immediately tapped complete order and got out. The rideshare driver turned to look at Fu Hang, who hadn't gotten out. Fu Hang looked stunned. You just completed the order? Fu Hang rolled down the window. What else? Qin Yuchu wondered. What about me? Fu Hang was bewildered. You get out, of course. To go home. To your place. Or it could be your place. Qin Yuchu smiled again. Do you think this is funny? Fu Hang's tone turned cold. Home. A word he desperately avoided, even though he owned one of the most luxurious mansions in Hansheng. A meal that cost you over 100,000. I have to show my appreciation somehow, right? Qin Yuchu leaned against the car window, her smile exceptionally captivating. Are you drunk? Fu Hang was exasperated again. And if I am, so what? Qin Yuchu raised an eyebrow, her gaze mischievously drifting downwards. Drive. Fu Hang roared. Boss, the order's been completed. Add more money. Flat rate. I'll transfer it directly. Fu Hang rolled up the window. The driver looked awkwardly at Qin Yuchu outside the car, his expression complicated. Am I really driving off? The driver seemed reluctant, as if feeling he could still salvage the situation. They'd come from the Ping'an restaurant, and what the girl said about the meal costing over 100,000 might actually be true. Are you drunk too? Fu Hang was thoroughly annoyed. The driver was speechless. He shook his head at Qin Yuchu and stepped on the gas. The car weaved through the bustling city streets. Fu Hang stared blankly out the window at the flashing neon lights. The driver occasionally glanced at him in the rearview mirror. A strange sense of melancholy filled the car. Buddy, I know an old traditional Chinese doctor. Get lost. Veins throbbed on Fu Hang's forehead. Sigh. The driver paid no mind to Fu Hang's rudeness, just let out a heavy sigh. What a pity about that girl. An absolute stunner. Who said money is everything? That sigh almost made Fu Hang choke. His phone rang. Fu Hang frowned. This ringtone. Was it his work phone? Damn it. I'm off duty, and I forgot to turn it off again. Qingluan. Fu Hang quickly answered the call. Just because I didn't reply to your messages today, you went out to eat with her alone? The call connected, and a cold, interrogating voice came from the other end. Fu Hang's heart skipped a beat, and 3 options instantly popped into his mind. Option 1. Q, how could I possibly be mad at you? Option 2. W. Qingluan, listen to me, it's not what you think. Option 3. Yishi's your company's leader. I couldn't refuse. Fu Hang held his phone, falling silent. Aggressive? A preemptive strike? Fine, I'll take it. No resistance, just play defense. Option 4, our default. The call lapsed into an eerie silence. Neither of them spoke. I had dinner with Director Su because of work. After all, I made a serious mistake yesterday. After a long, long silence, Shen Qingluan suddenly explained in a low voice, her words almost choked with sobs by the end. See, even a simp doesn't always go on the offensive. A good defense can sometimes be more effective than an attack. Sorry, I was actually also because... Fu Hang's voice was thick with apology and self-blame. I understand. Shen Qingluan cut him off. A playful smile touched Fu Hang's lips. Qingluan, your timing has improved again. Oh, right? Was it really the CEO who treated you to dinner today? Shen Qingluan seemed to have moved on from her earlier emotions, her voice becoming gentler. MHM, Fu Hang frowned slightly, recalling Lawyer Zhang's earlier call. CEO? Where am I supposed to find a CEO for you? Hire an actor? Would the system flag it as faking performance? Ping'an Restaurant doesn't allow running a tab. How did the CEO pay? Shen Qingluan asked curiously. Qin Yuchu took a picture of the payment QR code and sent it to them directly. Fu Hang answered without hesitation. I see. Have you reached home yet? Shen Qingluan's voice held a hint of disappointment, but she quickly moved on. Still on my way. Almost there. What about you? Haven't you gone back yet? Want me to come pick you up? I'm on my way too. You've been drinking, so get some rest early. Shen Qingluan gently declined. Okay, you get some rest too. I'll bring you breakfast tomorrow. MHM, good night. Good night. Hanging up, Fu Hang's gaze towards the world outside the car grew more complicated. The driver in the front, however, was utterly amazed. That was clearly not the same girl as before, right? Money really does seem to be omnipotent. But still, are you sure you don't need that old Chinese doctor's number? It might actually be somewhat effective. Change of plans. Go to Yinshu Binjiang, Fu Hang said. He suddenly didn't want to go back to the rental apartment he'd lived in for years. He wanted to go home. The driver took a deep breath, flicked the turn signal, and changed lanes, thinking, don't tell me there's another one. Bro, I suddenly kind of get you. Maybe it's really not your fault. If it's really like this, that old Chinese doctor probably won't do much good. The car made a U-turn at the traffic light. The driver kept glancing at Fu Hang in the rearview mirror, trying to discern some hidden, extraordinary quality about him. Then, Fu Hang's phone rang again. It was his work phone. Looking at the caller ID, Fu Hang's expression was incredibly complicated. Li Weiyang. Should I answer? Fu Hang was torn. From a professional standpoint, the persona of a simp is infinitely close to that of an ex-boyfriend. And a proper ex-boyfriend should be like a dead man. From the moment of separation, especially when the other person gets married, he should vanish from their lives, never interfering, never seeing each other again until death. Even burning a piece of joss paper for them on tomb sweeping day would be an offense. If you're single, and I'm your simp, that's passion, persistence, faith, devotion. I can simp for you until the sky turns dark and the sun and moon lose their light. But if you're married and I still simp, then it's despicable, shameless, creepy, thuggish. I'd have to face moral condemnation, public judgment, ridicule from public opinion, and punishment from the system. Wei-yong. Fu Hang answered the call anyway. Is it convenient to talk? Li Wei-yong asked abruptly. I was just heading home. Fu Hang understood instantly. Sorry about what happened today. Li Wei-yong's voice sounded a little melancholic from the other end. It's nothing, don't worry about it. Fu Hang again instantly understood what she was referring to. You might not mind, but it was ultimately because of me. You don't need to explain it to me. I understand. Fu Hang cut her off, turning to look out the car window. You should be almost home by now. You haven't changed a bit, Li Wei-yong sighed after a moment's silence. Fu Hang remained silent. Lady, this emotional direction you're taking is dangerous. My company has rules. I can't take on private gigs. Did you take that college girl home? Li Wei-yong teased like an old friend. MHM. Fu Hang's words became increasingly cautious. She's a nice girl. Young, pretty, smart, and decisive. Haha. Fu Hang gave a dry laugh, unwilling to elaborate on the topic. Can we talk? Li Wei-yong suddenly asked. Fu Hang's eyebrows shot up. He instantly understood again. This talk was definitely not about Qin Yuchu. I'm at the cafe where we first met. Fu Hang didn't answer immediately. He was truly conflicted. Speaking of which, in our line of work, is there such a thing as after-sales service? I'll wait for you, Li Wei-yong said, not waiting for Fu Hang to think, and hung up directly. Fu Hang face-palmed, an expression of utter despair on his face. Bro, we're here. Should I stop at this gate? The driver turned around, his face full of admiration, speaking in a restrained and respectful tone. Fu Hang looked at him, his expression utterly contorted. From a professional perspective, he had no reason to get involved with Li Wei-yong again. From a personal perspective, he was even more unwilling to have any further entanglement with her. Did he have feelings for Li Wei-yong? Honestly, yes. But it was the kind of feeling a farmer has for his hoe, a worker for his hammer, an excavator operator for his digger, a teacher for their students. Li Wei-yong was a client, a product. She was an object he had once meticulously cared for, adored, supported, and doted on. But that was work. Fu Hang scanned the QR code to pay, opened the car door, and simultaneously took out his phone to compose a text message. Sorry, it's not convenient for me to come over right now. He hit send and turned off his phone. That night, Fu Hang went to bed early but slept restlessly. In his dream, he returned to his childhood, to the old communal apartment building he had sold years ago. He was quietly preparing vegetables while that familiar figure bustled about at the stove, chattering on about his school life. He answered sporadically, his attitude still lukewarm, but his gaze was fixed on that back. As thin as he remembered, her movements as practiced as in his memory. Her coiled bun was a little messy, but her neck was fair, and stray wisps of her hair, like rising cooking fumes, evoked the comforting warmth of everyday life. Fu Hang felt his eyes burn and his hands and feet grow cold. The word mom, which he hadn't uttered in so long, caught in his throat, and his nose began to tingle. Putting down the vegetables, Fu Hang calmly stood up. Only then did he realize he was now much taller than her. The floral apron slowly turned, a sweet smile on her face, full of innocence, purity, naivety. Qin Yuchu? Fu Hang jolted awake, tear tracks still on his face, his back drenched in sweat. That woman is definitely toxic. Morning, Sister Qingluan. Downstairs at the company building, Qin Yuchu greeted Shen Qingluan energetically, 2 food containers in her hand. Yuchu, what are you doing here so early? Shen Qingluan got out of a rideshare, glanced around, but didn't see Fu Hang. Her gaze landed on the 2 food containers in Qin Yuchu's hands. Buying breakfast? Qin Yuchu lifted the food containers, handing one to Shen Qingluan. This is... Shen Qingluan looked puzzled. Yesterday, I saw on the menu at Ping restaurant that they serve breakfast, so I thought I'd try it out today. Qin Yuchu smiled, linking her arm with Shen Qingluan's as they walked into the company building. You bought this? From Ping restaurant? Shen Qingluan paused, turning her head again to look for Fu Hang. Yesterday, Fu Hang had said he would bring her breakfast today. Their understanding was that if they'd arranged it the day before, Fu Hang wouldn't bother her in the morning. If she hadn't specified what she wanted, Fu Hang would pick something based on her preferences. Fu Hang was just that thoughtful. But where was Fu Hang? Why hadn't he shown up? Fu Hang bought it, Qin Yuchu said matter-of-factly, stopping in front of the elevator. The confusion in Shen Qingluan's eyes deepened as she tried to make sense of the logic. You said you want to buy breakfast. How did it end up being Fu Hang who bought it? Shen Qingluan asked tentatively. We bought it together, okay? But he paid for it. Qin Yuchu flashed a sweet smile, so captivating that everyone waiting for the elevator, men and women alike, turned their heads away, not daring to look directly at her. You and him together? Then where is he? The elevator arrived, but Shen Qingluan's thoughts were even more jumbled. He dropped me off, and I told him to go on ahead. Qin Yuchu stepped into the elevator, checking herself in the mirror, not forgetting to fix her slightly messy hair. It was her loose hair, disheveled by a helmet. Drop you off. Shen Qingluan also noticed Qin Yuchu's actions. Once the logic clicked into place, a nameless anger flared up inside her. I found out that during morning rush hour, an electric scooter is faster than the bus. I wonder if I can get Fu Hang to give me a ride every day from now on, since he has to bring you breakfast anyway. Qin Yuchu tilted her head, oblivious to what others in the elevator might think upon hearing this. Electric scooters can be quite dangerous. Shen Qingluan forced a smile, offering a well-intentioned warning. True enough. Qin Yuchu shrugged, saying no more. Back in her office, Shen Qingluan slammed the exquisite food container onto her desk. P2.Am restaurant? That wasn't close at all. Could an electric scooter even get there in under an hour? Buying breakfast together? A coincidence? Hell no. Shen Qingluan pieced it all together. Fu Hang had first picked up Qin Yuchu. Then, at Qin Yuchu's request, they had ridden close together on the electric scooter, crossing half the city to P2.Am restaurant to buy breakfast, then crossing half the city again to drop Qin Yuchu off at work. Her breakfast was just an afterthought. Suddenly, the luxurious breakfast from P2.Am restaurant lost its appeal. Shen Qingluan even felt the urge to throw it in the trash. Without hesitation, she pulled out her phone and found Fu Hang's number. But just as she was about to press the call button, her finger froze. After a long pause, she switched apps and sent Fu Hang a message. Thanks for such a luxurious breakfast. You shouldn't have spent so much. Pouting emoji. As long as you like it, Fu Hang replied instantly. Putting down his phone, Fu Hang looked constipated. He'd had insomnia yesterday, waking up in the middle of the night and unable to fall back asleep. He remembered his electric scooter was still at P2.Am restaurant, and since he had slept at Yinshu 1 last night, he'd left as soon as it was light out. He hadn't opted for a taxi. It was early anyway, so he rode a shared bike through the early morning, the night dew still fresh. He often did this. It seemed to remind him that he was no different from those hard-working people who rose early every day. He rode all the way to P2.Am restaurant, only to run into the person he least wanted to see that morning. Qin Yuchu, the woman who wouldn't even leave him alone in his dreams. What happened next was pretty much as Shen Qingluan had guessed. Qin Yuchu insisted on eating breakfast there. Fu Hang reluctantly agreed. After all, Shen Qingluan's portion would be reimbursed by the system, and since they were already there, it saved him the trouble of buying it elsewhere. Giving Qin Yuchu a ride, the two of them weaved through the city in the early morning, stirring an unfamiliar feeling in Fu Hang. Looking around, he saw many others like them, two to a scooter. Some were sleepy-eyed, others full of beans. Some held each other tight, others were silent and distant. They too carried breakfast, some with soy milk or milk, others with insulated containers hanging from the front of their scooters. The hustle and bustle of ordinary lives, a multitude of beings. At that moment, Fu Hang suddenly felt an unprecedented sense of a down-to-earth, everyday life, like the messy bun on that fair neck. Damn it! Fu Hang shook his head hard. The sight of that apron turning had left an indelible shadow on him. Suddenly, a translucent steamed bun appeared before him, held by slender, fair fingers. Fu Hang hesitated for 3 seconds, then lowered his head and took a bite of the bun. He glanced sideways. The big bro next to him cast an envious look. Behind him sat a middle-aged woman with a round face and short hair, heartily devouring a savory crepe. Fu Hang suddenly felt that the 98 yuan crystal steamed bun was really worth it. Perhaps moved by his emotions, Fu Hang left directly after dropping Qin Yuchu off downstairs at her company. He felt a strange unease, telling himself it was fear of the system's judgment for handling personal matters during work hours. All right, why are you the only one here? Fu Hang put down his phone and looked around the milk tea shop. Although the shop was losing a lot of money, it was quite spacious, so Fu Hang had kept the previous staffing arrangement. 2 people per shift, with 2 shifts. But this morning, there was only 1 employee in the store. "Boss, Shally might be quitting," said Xia Xiaofeng, the sole employee, peeking his head over the counter. "Quitting? Didn't he just start?" Fu Hang frowned. This Shally had been there for less than half a month. He was a new hire after Fu Hang took over. The contract lawyer Zhang had drafted at the time was quite ruthless. One clause stated, a 1-month probation period, during which if an employee resigned for personal reasons, their salary for that month would be forfeited. This covered new employee training fees, uniform costs, and a few other things. But as long as they completed the month, these costs would be borne by the company. So, if Shally left just like that, he'd really lose his salary for these past 2 weeks. "I heard he broke up with someone," Xia Xiaofeng shrugged helplessly, a rueful expression on his face. "Broke up?" Fu Hang twitched his lips. "Young people these days." "Yeah, I heard his girlfriend cheated on him." Fu Hang shook his head. He found it hard to empathize with such situations. To him, it was like a client switching service providers, perfectly normal, likely Wei Yang, for example. This was the workplace, and also the market. "Boss, what do you think love really is?" Seeing no one else around, Xia Xiaofeng made a mango pomelo sago, brought it to Fu Hang, and sat down opposite him. "How would I know?" Fu Hang was speechless. "As if I've ever been in love." "Boss, don't be so modest. Share some more of your wisdom," Xia Xiaofeng said, his face full of admiration. He'd met Qin Yuchu before, and she was, to put mildly, breathtaking. Beautiful, gentle, kind of everyone like a goddess, really. "What? Are you seeing someone?" Fu Hang felt flattered. "Not really. It's just little Li, you know. We get along pretty well, but seeing what happened to him, it makes me lose faith in love. His girlfriend, man, he chased her for ages. They weren't even together for 3 months before she cheated on him. See? Young people these days. Too naive." Fu Hang sipped his milk tea, tilting his head back at a 45-degree angle to gaze at the ceiling. "Oh, how so?" The server sat up straighter, ready for some wisdom. "You think once you've won her, she's yours? Isn't that how it works?" "Wrong. You won her, sure, but it was just your turn." Fu Hang pursed his lips. "With an attitude like that, you don't deserve Yuchu." A sudden roar came from the doorway, making Fu Hang nearly choke on his drink. He whipped his head around, startled, to see a tall, imposing figure standing there. Sharp brows, bright eyes, an upright posture, and a large black case slung diagonally across his back. The morning sun streamed in from behind him, glorious and dazzling, bathing him in a golden light. His aura was magnificent and imposing, powerful and resolute. Holy crap, does he come with his own special effects? This is so over the top, it's breaking the fourth wall. Are you sure we're in the right script? My good sir, are you here for a quick bite or a room for the night? Fu Hang twitched an eyebrow, slowly rising and moving to stand behind the server. I'm here for you. The newcomer strode in with the confidence of a dragon and the gait of a tiger, stepping through the doorway in a single bound. You're the guy who was singing at Han University Park? Once the blinding special effects subsided, Fu Hang finally got a clear look at him. It was the cheerful-looking guy he'd met in the park yesterday, the guitar still on his back. Man, for a second there, I thought I'd stumbled into a different show. My name is Lei Lu, from Hansheng University's Music Conservatory. Lei Li's presence was still intense, his gaze sharp and challenging. Have a seat. What can I get for you? Fu Hang offered a smile. Water. Lei Lu tilted his chin up, sitting down opposite Fu Hang, his imposing demeanor perfectly maintained. Yochu's usual favorite is the mango pomelo sago. Mango pomelo sago, it is then, Lei Lu declared with a lordly wave of his hand, though the guitar on his back restricted his movement. He shifted in his seat, hesitating about whether to take the guitar off. Fu Hang snapped his fingers at the server, Xia Xiaofeng, who quickly scurried behind the counter to prepare it. That'll be 68. Cash or scan. Fu Hang picked up the QR code stand from the counter, a professional smile on his face. Lei Li's expression froze. His imposing aura faltered. Payment received, 68 yuan. Thank you for your patronage. The shop's payment confirmation tone sounded. Fu Hang smiled, put the QR code stand back, and sat down opposite Lei Lu. You work here. Lei Lu unslung his guitar, set it aside, and began to rebuild his composure. This shop? It's mine. Fu Hang grinned. Aren't you a delivery guy? Lei Lu glanced at the helmet and vest in the corner. Market research. Fu Hang stuck to the persona Qin Yuchu had designed for him. Lei Lu was momentarily speechless, his carefully cultivated aura wavering again. How did you know I'd be here? Fu Hang tilted his head, genuinely curious. Yuchu often drinks milk tea from this place. I see her with it all the time at university, Lei Lu said, steadying his breath. At school, I'm always keeping an eye on her. So you're here for her? Fu Hang realized. He certainly put in some effort, he thought. Of course. Lei Li's imposing aura flared up again, the kind that wouldn't yield an inch, defiant to the end. You're early. She usually comes around 10:30. Fu Hang glanced at his watch. Ever since he started wearing it, he'd gotten used to it, which was why he kept forgetting to turn off his work phone. She'll be here at 10:30. A delighted surprise spread across Lei Li's face. He'd come hoping to try his luck. Seeing Qin Yuchu at university was incredibly difficult since she rarely attended classes. Initially, he was just drawn to Qin Yuchu's beauty, but as he learned more about her, he became captivated by her immense radiance. Top of her class in every subject, guaranteed a postgraduate spot, a student from a disadvantaged background, working part-time to fund her studies. All these buffs, stacked onto a girl of supreme beauty, created an infinitely compounding allure. Layla was completely smitten, especially yesterday, when he'd heard with his own ears and seen with his own eyes how this near-perfect goddess actually possessed such a fragile heart, such deep-seated insecurity. His heart had shattered into countless tiny, insignificant pieces, and every fragment reflected the tear that fell as Qin Yuchu turned away. He swore he would use his humble soul to save her, to awaken her divine essence. He would stand beside her in the spotlight, bask in the adoration of the masses, revel in her peerless splendor, and show the world her divine radiance. And so he had come. Except, the script wasn't quite playing out as he'd imagined. You're not bothered at all? Layla looked at Fu Hang, who was smiling amiably. Why should I be? You paid, didn't you? Fu Hang gestured to the mango pomelo sago the server had just placed on the table. That's not what I meant. Layla snapped, annoyed. He felt his noble sentiments were being belittled. It doesn't matter. You're a paying customer, and the customer is always right. Fu Hang's smile grew, even more benign. But I'm here to fight you for Yuchu. Layla glared, straightening his back, his turbulent aura beginning to coalesce once more. It's not as good when it gets cold. Go on, try it. This is Yuchu's favorite flavor. Fu Hang thoughtfully inserted a straw for him. Lei Li's breath caught. He instinctively lowered his head and took a sip through the straw. The rich, sweet, milky fragrance exploded in his mouth, and his carefully cultivated aura dissipated once again. Tastes pretty good, Layla commented sincerely. No wonder Yuchu liked it so much. If you like it, feel free to recommend it to your friends. Fu Hang beamed. Business development opportunities were everywhere. As they say, a good salesperson doesn't just find customers, they cultivate them. The atmosphere grew awkward. Layla tried several times to gather his thoughts and find the right way to press his point, but he couldn't find an opening. So, tell me, Fu Hang spoke first, how did you woo Yuchu? Lei Lu paused, unsure of Fu Hang's intentions, but his instincts told him the main event was finally starting. This was a battle between men. Fu Hang's question was cunning. He didn't ask why Lei Lu liked her, or what he could do for her, or what he could give her. He went straight for, how did you woo her? A provocation? A taunt? No. This was the bell ringing for a fight in the octagon. I give her things she likes, of course. Layla leaned back, offering an answer that was both offensive and defensive. Oh, and what is she like? Fu Hang's gaze landed on the mango pomelo sago in front of Layla. First blood. Lei Li's face stiffened. Things she likes? He didn't even know her favorite milk tea. No worries, don't mind that. So what did you give her? Fu Hang coaxed gently. Lipstick. Lei Li's confidence began to wane. Makeup? So, you think she's not pretty enough? Implying she needs makeup to cover something up? Double kill. A flicker of panic crossed Lei Li's eyes. Anything else? Fu Hang asked, a slight smile playing on his lips, as if patiently guiding a student. SN. Snacks. That's thoughtful. Her roommates would probably like those. Huh. Lei Li's expression became even more mortified. He understood Fu Hang's implication. Triple kill.